Good evening, everybody, and welcome along to round 5 of our GT3 Season 13 campaign here at SimRacing International. Championship picture is starting to sharpen up a little bit, and each result carries that little bit more weight and a little bit more pressure as we ramp up toward the finale in just over a month's time. Can you believe it? So tonight we arrive at Road America, 6.5 kilometres and 14 corners of this classic American circuit ahead of our drivers tonight. A circuit certainly demanding bravery and commitment. We'll see more of that when we join our drivers in qualifying in just a few moments' time. So a 90-minute feature race up for these drivers tonight. So strategy firmly back on the table. So we'll look out for those particular corners. We'll point those out in just a short while, but that is where time can be found and lost, and places, of course, too, during our race. So as always, leading you through tonight's action is myself, Mr. Joseph Glass, and Dara Thack is joining me back in the commentary box tonight. And Dara, with that extra half hour added back to the clock tonight, around a circuit that tends to punish those mistakes in those high-speed sectors, I'm sure a few of those championship contenders will be thinking about whether tonight is the night to attack, or maybe tonight's the night to just simply survive, get some points in the bank, and they're going to need those if they're going to stand a good chance at a good result come the end of the season.
Yep, you've got to be careful, I think, at a track like Road America. And you said Atlanta there. God, I don't know how many times I go to that thing. But yeah, Road America, it's quite open, which feels like you can go almost flat out through all of this circuit, but it's quite deceiving. The carousel, it's almost a game on how much throttle do you want to apply, and then particularly towards the end of the lap, when we're in race conditions, it can be quite tempting to go for the move, and often it can come off quite badly. It's higher speed and lower speed than you think all at once, which it's confusing to explain, but I think when you watch the cars on the circuit, you'll understand what we mean, because it is a circuit that gives you a lot of chance to make some moves and to make up some time, but at the same time, it can really come back to bite you in a way that not many circuits can.
Absolutely then. So let's have a little rundown of the calendar, as always, and we'll bring you the latest standings in all 3 of our championships. So 4 rounds completed already. The 5th up tonight, that 90-minute session ahead of us here at Road America. Next we've got Hockenheim, a circuit that we haven't visited in some time. Le Mans, that'll be good, a 90-minute cracker around that classic circuit. And then the final 3 rounds toward the end of August, the start of September, Daytona, the Red Bull Ring, and Suzuka. Particularly looking forward to those last 2 rounds. Mixed weather around the Red Bull Ring, and that Suzuka Sunset race, which will certainly bring us to a good end to the championship. That was the last finale we had as well back in Season 10 before I went off on me jolly, so it'll be good to see some more championship fights going on in that one in just over a month's time then. So let's take a look at the standings then, starting of course with the elite class. So Anders Myhre keeping up that good run of race victories. If it wasn't for that issue that he had in around Bathurst in the second round, it would be a clean sweep for the Norwegian Ferrari driver at the moment, but he'll settle for 350 points. Let's see how he fares in this one tonight. Brandon Dyer still in touching distance, albeit 99 points away from that championship leader. A mixed bag of results for the altitude-free McLaren driver. 2 podiums, and yet 2 results that he wish will have ended differently for him in rounds 2 and rounds 3. But having said that, he's still in a very competitive position. He has to look over his shoulder though, because he's got the Lamborghini of Kieran Sharp bearing down on him. He enters the top 3 ahead of Nils Wever, who again 1 podium to his name, but he's made some good form of it actually in the last couple of weeks. Hasn't finished outside the top 5 since the opening round. The last 90-minute race wasn't the best for the German driver, so let's see if he can perform a little bit better here tonight. Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, his surge toward the top 5 of his championship, going very well indeed. Not many points scored, in fact, if any points scored in the opening 2 rounds, but then back-to-back second places in this championship see him rise up to 5th, and he's certainly been putting a challenge on against Anders Myhre, particularly in qualifying, and he's been holding his own toward the front of the order during the race. No one has yet to show Anders any competition when it comes to race pace, but qualifying is definitely up for grabs. Richard Simnor is in 6th. His season hasn't quite continued the way that he started it. That podium place right back in round 1 will have brought him the bulk of his points. Harvey Wheeler, the only driver there outside, who hasn't got himself on the podium in his Ferrari for Team UKSR, so he'll be hoping to get himself a little bit closer to the top 5. He's only 6 points away from that at present, so that's definitely still well on the cards. The Dutchman in his BMW, Joris Peters-Wiem, is in P8 ahead of Andy Jones in P9. Danny Pillman in his Mustang rounding out the top 10 with some pretty consistent results over the last few weeks. Andrew Pike will want to get back on the horse. He had some good rounds in the first part of the championship. Since then, last fortnight hasn't been the best for him. Rounding out the top 12, the British driver for Altitude Free M Esports. He has pace, but he's been unfortunate. I think he had a drive-through right toward the end of the session last time out, and of course we'll remember around Spa in the second round. He had that issue at Spa in the third round, didn't he? Running out of fuel, going from probably the top 3, I think it was, all the way down to P8 in the second round, failing to finish. So Corey's definitely got the pace, but he just hasn't quite been able to convert it during the race. Let's keep our eyes on him tonight, see how he fares.
And then over we go to the pro standings, where it's been a good start. Well, actually, I say a good start. It's been a mixed start to the season for Danny Phillips. Yes, he leads the championship with 2 wins to his name, but he's not finished inside the top 10 in either of the other 2 races so far, so a bit of a mixed bag. The same can be said for Mr. Jamie Bardwell with 2 wins, but a P5 as well. Obviously, his results on paper are slightly better, but Danny Phillips picked up the win in the 90-minute race we've had so far this season, and so therefore got an extra bonus of points, which is why he's championship leader. And Jamie Bardwell is second. They have a bit of a gap back to Chris Jennings, who performed well in the opening round of the season with a P2, but hasn't quite been able to reach those heights since. We'll see if he can maybe pull it back a bit tonight. Ollie Pimley, another driver who's done well at the start of the season, up in P4 in the championship, but will be looking for a little bit more. This is where it gets quite congested in this pro championship order. Bobby Moss has got a podium to his name, but again, not another result inside the top 5. That's a theme, I think, for a lot of these guys. Simon Clifton has been consistent in terms of getting a 4th and a 5th, but he's not been inside the top 10 at every race either, and I don't really think anybody has, which just goes to show how unpredictable this part of the championship is. John Breitenbach, P2 is his best result back from round 3, but hasn't been able to replicate that since in his barbecue boys racing car, barbecue bread I should say, racing car. Adam Smith for ETE in P8, he got P3 last week, which has really shot him up the order and put him in contention. Same can be said for Matt Gardner, after his P2 has put him right in amongst this group. He's P9, and yet he's closer to P3 in the championship than P3 is to P2, so he's got a good chance to move up the order if he can replicate some of that form tonight. Lewis Hammond, a couple of top 6s in the last 2 weeks have put him in the top 10. And then keep an eye on Sam Hockley, who hasn't had a top 5 yet this season, however, has been consistent enough to finish inside the top 13 every single race. One of the only drivers to do that, actually I think the only driver to do that in all 4 of the races so far this season, inside the top 11 in the championship. And then of course Max Wheeler, he's only been here for 2 races, but when he's been here he's performed well, and that's why he just about scrapes onto the bottom end of this top 12, Joe.
Yeah, an incredibly tight mid-pack there from 3rd all the way down, really, so really interesting to see. That's great for these drivers. So let's have a look at the teams, and then we'll catch the back end of qualifying. So it's a good midpoint that the Moonshiners Racing Club find themselves in. 2 teams in the championship, and both of those teams in the 1st and 2nd slots on this lovely graphic here. So Ashley Shucksmith, Christopher Petty, James Fraser and Liam Fraser, the only team who've crossed into the 700 points mark. 715 leads them ahead of the 2nd MRC team of Sheesby, Bardwell, Rob Gregg and Denny Plugger. Pretty close in behind. Only 5 points separates them from the Dexterous Motorsports Magenta team of Wenman, Phillips, Ian Stitchbury and Martin Kenyon. Then it's a bit of a bigger gap down to the STL duo down there in B-Split. Mark de Vries and Menno Blum doing well to score all the points necessary for their teams with just 2 drivers. The first of our TSRC teams is inside the top 5. They're not too far behind the top 4 either. Andrew Pike, Kieran Sharp, Craig Twardock and Bobby Moss doing well for themselves, notably up here in A-Split. Craig Twardock has had a pretty good championship so far out. Another 2-man team doing well for themselves is the Dark Wing Racing team of Lewis Hammond and Michael Rhodes, just inside the 500 point mark. Second of our DXT teams, this time it's the Cyan team of Danny Weir, James Howarth, Rob Mackay and Ross Young. They'll want to get themselves into the top 5 and cross over that 500 points mark as well. And these guys are awfully familiar with the setup of things here in SRI, so they will know what they need to do in the next 6 rounds of racing here to try to convert a good Teams Championship finish. The NJB Performance team are in P8, Pillman, Wever and Sven Weber. We've seen plenty of those guys out there on track here in a split. Then it's the first hour Axis teams. The Sim Coach team is consisting of Treen, Furman and Simon Clifton, ahead of the Altitude Freeham Esports team, Brandon Dyer and Corey Price. 2 drivers who have some incredible pace so far, though the end result at the end of our races here hasn't quite gone in their favour. The rest of the teams down there, the ET team ahead of the Quiddermas team, the DCWR, Andy Jones and Richard Simnar ahead of Team UKSR, and the first of our GPX Sim Sports teams in 15th. Verano Esports start ahead of the Axis Simworks team, second of 2 Axis teams in this championship, ahead of LS Racing, STR, and that Barbecue Bread Racing team of John Breitenbach and Marcel Breitenbach. Again, 2 drivers that seem like they should be a little bit higher up the order. They're always there or thereabouts competing in the races, but sadly for them, 20th will have to do in the Teams Championship then. So, we only have a few moments left, just over 5 minutes remain in this qualifying session. So let's have a little look at how everything stacks up for these drivers. And lo and behold, Dara, we have a nice little fight on our hands at the front of qualifying, because just a moment ago Milton Tomlinson-Dennis was ahead of Anders Myhre, and in the moment that we've just gone through the team standings, the positions have switched again. It looks as though Anders is coming toward the end of the lap now, making his way around the final corner. He should pop up on that little qualifying times down at the bottom of the screen. We'll see if he improves as he makes his way toward the line, but it's been a pretty competitive set of qualifying sessions. There you go, purple sector in sector 2, but nowhere else improving for Anders. Not that far away, only 100th away from his best time, so he'll feel confident that in the final couple of laps here, he'll have maybe one more go at it. He's certainly pushing hard, and he's gone off the track. That might be his qualifying session over, Dara. But a word on this man, Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, sort of come out of the, I don't want to say come out of nowhere, but his qualifying results certainly weren't anywhere as strong as they have been over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and he's really putting the fight to Anders Myhre. He just has to work on that race pace, because he does seem to struggle a little bit in the long run in comparison to Anders, but at least we have a very competitive qualifying session on our hands week in, week out between these 2 drivers.
Yes, we want to see. We want to see these, any number of drivers battling out for pole, and it's good that we have a competitive nature at the front of the field. Milton, I think, going again here as he looks to try and improve up the order. Of course, when the timer hits 0, it's not necessarily at the end of the session yet, because this is just there's only a 1 race evening tonight, which therefore means that in qualifying, when the timer hits 0, you can finish the lap that you are on. So we're not into the stage where you've got to be crossing the line with just over 2 minutes to go to make sure you get your lap time in. They have a little bit longer than that. So Milton Tomlinson-Dennis maybe has 2 more attempts at this to try and reclaim pole from Anders, but Anders has been so consistent, hasn't he, over the course of the season so far. Good to see Jan Stitchbury up there in P3 in Elite, and also good to see Adam Lynch leading the way in that Pro class. He leads through a trio of McLarens. In fact, 6 of the top 7 are in that McLaren car.
Yeah, he's actually not inside the top 12 in the Pro class standings. It's Mr. Lynch, so again, coming out of nowhere to put on a bit of a display for us here in the Pro class. That'll rattle a few cages, I'm sure. The like of Danny Phillips and Chris Jennings will be wanting to start a little bit higher up in the order for this one. But Lynch says, no, I'm going to set that time. It's a 2-minute 2.0 for him at present, but he's only half a tenth clear of Ross Young, who's there as well. A little bit more of a spread field than we're used to. Still very competitive, though, as you can see there. 9 drivers just outside of half a second, which is pretty competitive, but we're quite used to seeing more drivers within a few tenths of a second down there in the Pro class. So Road America throwing a little bit of a spanner in the works for a few of these guys. A little bit more effort needed in these final stages of qualifying, but again, Dara, only probably 2 more laps for these guys to set an improvement. Danny Phillips looks like he is on for an improvement as well. He's got a personal best in the 2nd and the 4th sector. Let's see if he can make that a nice coordinated beam there. It's going to be yellow, green, yellow, green, yellow, green, which might see him get himself on the front row of the grid. He needs about a 1/10 of a second to make that happen. And as he heads down the start-finish line, crosses the line, it's not an improvement for him, and he knows that his session is over. He'll have to settle for the second row at best, it seems, unless anyone like Chris Jennings or Adam Smith can drop him a little bit further down the order.
Yep. And yeah, time is really nagging away from a lot of these guys. We're about to see them start what will be their final laps. Chris Jennings will get another one in if he's fueled up enough. If he has a slower lap here, he'll get to the line in time to go again. But can he improve there? He does improve and goes fastest, nearly into the 2-minute ones. But Chris Jennings won't mind. He's fastest of them all. With such little time now remaining, it's going to be a question to see who can top that in the closing stages. The likes of Phillips, Smith, John Breitenbach, they won't be improving because they're in the pit lane and the timer has passed 2 minutes 2.
Yeah, there you go then. Adam Lynch cannot improve. He will get another chance to go again, but a great last gasp effort there by Mr. Jennings. He's been very unfortunate at the start of the last couple of races, Dara. He's been sort of taken out, let's say, not of his own doing. It's been a bit of a cluster, as you can imagine, down there. Not in the mid-pack, of course, but when you have maybe 12 or 15 elite drivers ahead of our pro-class poleman, it gets a little bit tricky for that second class to deal with race starts. And sadly, Jennings has fallen victim to some incidents over the last couple of weeks. So again, he will be pleased to be in pole position at the moment, but it's not as straightforward as pole position in the elite class. You have nothing in front of you, very little behind you going on. You just focus forwards, whereas Jennings has to look all around them. Everyone toward the front of the pro class has to be wary all around them. So Jennings will be hoping to put that bad luck aside. Hopefully he can get away well if he can hold on to this pole. I think at the moment the only man who's going to test that is going to be this McLaren of Adam Lynch. Ross Young does have a chance at it. He's a little bit further toward the end of the lap now, making his way down the back straight into the final set of corners. He goes, coming out of Canada up through Valley and into turn 13 and now 14. He'll get his foot down as he exits the final corner, not improving. Bobby Moss is improving on a big, every sector, a personal improvement for him. He's just about to cross the line now as well. Let's see, does Ross Young improve? No, he does not. Bobby Moss will improve, and it's enough to send him outside the top 10 right into P6. Third row of the grid it will be for Bobby Moss in his McLaren. He adds another McLaren to that list, which is now all but one inside the top 8.
Yeah, but time really ticking away now. Drivers just about finishing finishing their session as the time's about to hit 0. Adam Lynch will be one of the next ones to cross the line, but he will find the checkered flag flying. Can he overtake Chris Jennings? I'm not too sure that he can, as his time hasn't even appeared, so no, we'll stay P2. Jan Stitchbury, is he able to find an improvement? He's only improved in one of the 5 sectors that he's clocked through so far, so he's going to have a big final. Well, he's going to come into the pit lane, so he won't improve at the end of the session. Is there anybody else who can challenge? Nils Wever, maybe, as he comes around the carousel. There's ways to go for him to try and get to the line in time, but realistically, he's the almost last possible challenger to Anders Myhre, you'd like to think. Even with a couple of people left on a lap, Richard Simner maybe as well. He's improving a little bit. He's just finished his lap time. What's he going to be able to set? He does improve. P6 for Simner, so Weber's going to need a slight improvement, even of just 200ths to get him onto the second row.
Yeah, Nils Wever again, as you said there, doing well. We watch him now coming through that complex sequence of corners. He's tackled the carousel well, tackled the bend and the kink, made his way through Kettle Bottoms, and now he enters the final corner, the rear just stepping out of line as he throws it in at the final corner. He feels like he might have some time under him. He'll know what his delta is. He'll know that a tenth of a second will put him on, well, way less than a tenth of a second will put him onto the second row of the grid. It might be. He's about to do it. He does that indeed at the last effort there. Great effort by the NJB Performance. Mustang gets himself up from 7th or 8th up into P4. Great way to end the session for him.
And really good for him to be able to pop it in just at the end. Young's going to stay P3, but looks like yes, indeed he does. Oh, but that's another time that would be good enough for P3 on its own. Mav Gardner goes to P15, as I think that's going to be pretty much everyone across the line in this qualifying session. But Anders Myhre does it again by a tenth of a second this time.
Yeah, very good effort by both of our pole sitters here, both in the elite class and in the pro class. A little bit closer. Let's watch out for Jennings and Adam Lynch toward the start of this one. That went awfully quick, Dara, but as we said, we've got a 90-minute race ahead of us. So we've got to keep ourselves fresh and not get too burnt out. Running through for the next 90 minutes, of course. Something that the drivers have got to think about. because it's only the second time, I believe, is it in SRI history, ESR history, that we've had such a long league race. Normally, I remember the days when we used to have those 20-minute sprint races. We usually had the 30-minute double headers. Then we moved to 1 hour. And now this season, we have those 90-minute sessions for the drivers to endure. So again, a different kettle of fish for these guys to deal with. Having only done it once in that opening round, lessons will have been learned from that as well, I'm sure. And now an opportunity to go again. So some mixed feelings, I'm sure, for some of these drivers heading into this session, but a good confidence boost, I think, for many of these guys, especially Chris Jennings, who, like I've already said, has had a pretty torrid time of it recently. Hopefully he can get away well.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I think these 90-minute races are important on the start, more so than people realise, because it's easy to just say, I'll sit back, take it a little bit easier off the start. But I think, in a 30-minute race, in a 60-minute race, yeah, you could find yourself towards the back, if you spun out or something. I think you really then have the impetus to go and make something happen with the rest of the time. In a 90-minute race, there's almost the danger of being too relaxed because you feel like you've got that little bit extra time. So I think you've got to be slightly wary of how you approach lap 1 and that you don't give too much away and almost by doing so, sleepwalk into giving a little bit more time away than you otherwise would have wanted to. So got to be careful. But it's a long race. The flip side of that same coin is you do have that time to build something back or, work your way back into the race if something does go around the opening lap.
That's true. And remember, we're not going to see these guys giving it full pace throughout the entirety of the race. Oftentimes, if you just drop a few tenths for the first phase of such a long race, it ends up coming back to you in the form of a little bit more grip toward the end of that session, of course. Some drivers will come in to change tyres. Not everybody will. The tyres will go the distance if they so choose, but it can be difficult if you sort of shred them a little bit too early on by fighting too aggressively and trying to, almost trying to match your qualifying times, even though that's going to be pretty difficult to do on a full tank of fuel. Some guys go out there and just try and set the fastest possible laps that they can for the first, let's say the first 10 laps of the race. But for those who take it a little bit easier, just gradually let those tyres build into the race, it could all come back in their favour and they could find themselves lapping quite a bit faster than those guys around them if they're able to keep their tyres in check, of course. Some guys who know they're going to swap tyres during the pit stop will obviously be able to be a little bit more aggressive throughout the session, but let's not forget the difficulties that we can find in the tyre warm-up phase. You come out the pits, the tyres are cold, and it can often cost you a second or two just to get them back up to speed. So lots of strategic decisions that these drivers have to think about. And as you said, Dara, a lot more than 30-minute races and quite a bit more than 60 minutes. I would argue, tell me what you think about this, Dara, I would argue the difference between a 30 and a 60-minute round is, it's quite different when you have to stretch it all the way to 90. I think you can get away with some things when it's still just 1 hour, but pushing it beyond the hour does change things quite a bit, I think.
Yeah, it does, especially when you're looking at then 2 stops as well. It opens up the strategy options no end, and kind of moves around the goalposts of what you'd expect in a race like this. So, yeah, interesting, I think, to see how the drivers are going to adjust and get ready for it. But I mean, they're in for the long haul, aren't they? Couple of longer stints, and it by the end you're starting to feel like it's more of an endurance race than just an evening race. And it goes back to your point, what you were saying earlier about the way that we've changed doing races. I remember when we did, those 15-minute races that we used to do in the was it the TCRs?
They were crazy. And that was a strange time. It was a strange time when we had 3 20-minute rounds, and then you ended up with potentially 9 podium sitters in each class, and we had 2 or 3 classes in each session, which just meant that you could have a multitude of race winners and podium sitters, which was a little bit difficult when it came to the interviews toward the end of the night, Dara, because everybody wanted to get themselves in there and talk about how successful they were to get themselves up on the podium. But we're a little bit more subtle about it now. We have 1 race winner and 1 P2, 1 P3 across our 2 classes, which I think makes the win feel all that more rewarding. We're watching Brandon Dyer here in his pursuit of that BMW, putting pressure on in the warm-up session. Good practice for these two, actually, to get a little bit of what it might feel. Maybe not on the first lap, because there'll be a lot more chaos going on through there on the opening lap, but perhaps a few laps in, just to follow a car closely down that back section, of course. One of the more complicated corners to get right on the track. It's flat out, at least on low fuel. If you have the setup right, I'm sure early doors on that high fuel cold tyres, there'll be a little bit of a lift, but you have to be careful not to lose the weight and not to lose the balance of the car when you head through toward the kink. Sometimes better just keep it pinned and hope for the best, especially once you get over that first lap. But good practice there for Brandon Dyer, and he'll probably take confidence, actually, Dara, being one of the few drivers to get that good result in the first race of the season. He's obviously got that championship to fight for, 99 points adrift from Anders Myhre, but we have obviously first two in the championship. We're also P1 and P2 in that last 90-minute round, so I think positives to take for both of those drivers going into tonight's session.
Yeah, definitely, and things to kind of look forward to as well, things to build on. I think it's always an important outlook to have, particularly in a championship like this, kind of creating the building blocks that you can work the rest of your championship on. You know, you don't want to leave yourself too much to do by the end. It's not the longest season when you've only got 10 rounds. By this point, when we're, at the end of this race, over halfway through, or exactly halfway through, you don't want to be leaving yourself too much to do. These are the races, I think, rounds 5, 6, 7, where you want to just settle yourself enough, give yourself a good enough platform to be able to race well in the last 3 rounds, not give yourself too much to do. And I think that's almost that's then the challenge of not doing too much in these kinds of races to make sure that you can then create those building blocks.
Absolutely right. And so we have the grid forming up, drivers getting themselves ready, changing setups, adjusting tyres if they're going to swap in the first stop or in the second stop, all the things that you have to consider: fuel, tyres, and getting the setup right for this race. So ahead of this full formation lap, as we have a beautiful look at that DXT magenta livery of Kieran Sharp, who starts in 3rd place. Let's have a rundown, shall we, of the grid for this one tonight then. So it's another pole position for the Norwegian, 1:09, a time of a 2-minute 1.219 for Anders Myhre for RAA Sim Sports. He will share the front row of the grid once again with Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. Those two becoming very familiar with one another, however, this time just over a 1/10 of a second difference between the leading two drivers in qualifying. Jan Stichbury, arguably his best qualifying result of the season, ahead of Nils Wever, the German driver for NJB Performance, will share row 2. It's Sven Beber and Lewis Kenyon who will start on row 3. Richard Simno and Craig Twardock. Keep an eye out for Craig. His race pace has been pretty promising over the last few weeks, so let's see how he progresses up from P8. Ahead of Brandon Dyer, P2 in the championship, P9 out there on track, 6.5 tenths away from pole. He's got some work to do if he wants to stay in touching distance of Anders Myhre toward the latter stages of this championship. He starts out of Daniel Pillman, who rounds out our top 10. A pretty high result there for Chris Jennings on pole, the 222 British Axis Sim Sports SimWorks machine. That'll fill him with a lot of confidence, I think, Dara, because that's very few cars to contend with in terms of what's going to happen in front of him at the start of the race. He'll be hopeful that he can get away well and finally start a race on the strong foot. He'll start ahead of the elite driver Jared Love. He's got Adam Lynch, P2 in the Pro Class, P13 overall, starting right behind him then. So he's got to watch his mirrors as they make their way down toward the first corner. Joris Peters Wien, the Dutchman, 151, will start at the back of row 7, ahead of Kieran Sharp and Ross Young. Schubert Cardozo will start ahead of Patrick Falconer on row 9. It's Danny Phillips and Adam Smith who will round out our top 20. Bobby Moss and Sam Hockley will take up positions 21 and 22. Andrew Pike, the elite driver, in the mix of the pro class drivers, ahead of Mark Collicutt, Sean Brayton-Back and Lewis Hammond. Hayden Ahmed and Adam Baker. In fact, Hayden Ahmed had pace, didn't he, Dara, in the pro class a couple of weeks ago. Let's keep our eyes out and see what he can do while he makes his way through his class. Yeah, Adam Baker in behind him, ahead of Ollie Pimley and James Paisley Knight in P30. Nav Gardner and Benjamin Hunter will start in P31 and 32 on row 16, ahead of Jamie Bardwell and Lawrence de Dapper for LS Racing. Quinton van Vinkerden will start in P35. He's 2 seconds away from pole, ahead of James Foster, Jesus Saavedra and Paul Cowlishaw in P38. And that is all she wrote. 38 drivers out there tonight, 38 drivers qualifying for this session. Nobody starting in the pit lane, so a slightly reduced field, which probably bodes well for such a long race. It will leave a few more gaps out there on the circuit for drivers to slot into when they're thinking about strategy. It won't be so chaotic once things begin to spread out then. So that Porsche safety car leads the pack down the back straight, then just a few corners to go before we get ourselves underway. And I think if I was in Jan Sitchby's shoes at the moment, I'd be pretty satisfied, Dara. You can see the front two ahead. You've got the inside line going into the opening corner. And let's not forget he's got the power of that Mustang under him as well. 3 of the top 4 in this class in Mustangs behind that lead Ferrari. So that's clearly a dominant car for these drivers. That should fill them with some confidence as we get toward this one. I'll hand over the race start to you, Dara. Just one corner to go. Anders Myhre and Milton Tomlinson-Dennis share the front row of the grid. We've seen that before. Let's see how Jan and Nils get on in behind them.
Yep, this should be an interesting start. Who can get the jump? It is a long old run towards the start-finish line. Interesting to see when they go. There's going to be a lot of clamouring in behind. It's a fast turn 1 and 2 as well. Let's hope that we all stay nice and safe through turn 5 where we get to the first heavy braking zone that we're about to see. They rise to the crest. They can see the flagman waiting to drop the flag. And I think we're going now. Yeah, good start in the end, I think, from our pole sitter. But they're basically neck and neck, Anders Myhre and Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, as they run towards turn number 1. Everyone's staying in their lanes right now. Looks more like the M25 than a racetrack for the time being. Inside line for Anders Myhre. Can he control it? Looks like he's going to have the advantage, but Milton's not going to give it up. Wide from Sven Baber. It's going to allow Nils Wever to come through as well, but Jan Stichbury is the one maybe sniffing around for P2 rather than any move for P1. Side by side, 2 by 2 as they work their way through turn 2 and underneath that cheese bridge. So they're all going to make it through safely, looks like it, particularly through the front and even at the rear as well. So good start from everybody, but the first important braking zone is about to come up at turn 5. Can anybody dive it on Anders?
Yeah, very clean start by the entire pack. I don't think many people have been caught out in any incidents at all. Down the inside goes that Corvette looking to pick up a move. That's Richard Simnor diving down the inside. And there has been a bit of a pile-up, I believe, a little bit further back, Dara, in the braking zone. Yes, somebody is off. That's Craig Twardock in the elite class. He is down and around then. So one casualty at the start of that race, but mostly all good. And there's 2. I think that's 2 of the NJB performance cars. One stayed on the road but went wide, and the other one was sent spinning off there. A little bit of a wobble for the race leader in Anders Myhre, but he scoops it together nicely, and he's already got a pretty good margin. 2 seconds now back to the Corvette of Richard Simnor. That's what we saw bunching up as the drivers headed down in toward turn 5, and now the leader takes us through here for the first time as they go over our little track cam there. That's great to see, and you can see the gaps already building up. Just 2 or 3 drivers now in each group. Just good to see, but very, very good, Dara. Everyone has done very well at the start there. 2 wide was a few of those guys, I think, toward the front of the pro class. Chris Jennings has stayed in his position as well, so no issues for him at the start of this one.
Yeah, very brave cameraman to be sat there on the inside of the kink. I hope he's okay. Sat there, getting some good photos of everyone flying through, but they're just about going to single file out, I think, as they make their way towards the final corner. Big opening lap, as you'd expect, here at Road America. And a couple of gaps starting to form early on, and generally we have had a couple of casualties, obviously, those cars that went wide through up at turn 7, but I think generally it's been quite a clean start, which is what we want to see. 20 pro drivers split by less than 10 seconds at the end of the opening lap, which is exactly what you want. A nice close race there, and top 15 or so, or top even 13 in the elite class within 10 seconds as well. So a good close start, and I think this will be where we start to see drivers settle into the race. I can't see anybody trying to get overly ambitious too quickly.
Jan Stichbury has some defending to think about. The top 2 starting to get away ever so slightly. 2 seconds up the road as they head downhill, braking in towards turn 5. It's a move down there for the Altitude Free M Esports drivers side by side with the Yorkshire T driver of Lewis Kenyon. It's the McLaren of Brandon Dyer up the inside here. He's gained 3 positions in class already, and there's another one for him up into P6 goes the McLaren. Great move, concise and clean, gets himself through, and now if he can make a bit of a gap, he can try and get on the back of that NJB Performance Mustang, who's just a few car lengths further up the road. Great start by the Altitude Free M driver. This is the next pack coming through. It's led by Chris Jennings in the pro class. It's Bebber and then Adam Lynch just here in P2, so he really needs to clear the German ahead of him so he can stick to the back of his class rival. A battle for the lead is what we want to see, and that at the moment is being prevented by that German McLaren, but it's all good. We'll soon see how that one unfolds. A little bit further down the order, things staying pretty tight. Ollie Pimley down here in the top 10. He's going to be put under pressure, I think, going into the braking zone by that McLaren of, sorry, not Sam Hockley, Mark Collicutt is going to be under pressure by Sam Pimley as he moves to the inside, and they come awfully close together, and they do well there. I think wide goes one McLaren, and I think Ollie was very respectful on the brakes there to leave him plenty of room. And this is a battle between Ross Young and, is it Ross Young and Kieran Sharp? I'm not quite, yes, I think it is. Ross Young and Kieran Sharp on the outside there. But it's going to be awfully tight, Dara. Potentially 4 of them here going into turn 1 together.
Yep, not exactly what you'd want to see. It's going to get a little bit dicey. Bit of a defensive line then thrown. 2 by 2. Yes, I think that's what we're going to have. And towards turn 1. Careful on the inside. It pinches up a little bit. Adam Lynch just trying to make it through safely. A little bit of contact on the exit of turn 1. Is going to run all the way down to turn 2. And they're still locked side by side. Noah would be proud with this formation. A little bit of a send up the inside then. As we see Lynch just try and put his nose in the right place. Can he get Ross Young on the exit? He's got his nose in front for the time being, but he's not getting the slipstream. Will get some now as they both fight for it, running down towards turn 5. 3 on the right, 3 on the left as they make their way into the corner. Is there space for Lynch to try and send it around the outside? Of course, it's 2 elite drivers in front. He should be able to control it through the outside, but he's gone too deep, he's gone too wide, he's off the road, and that's going to allow Ross Young back through. And Danny Phillips is just watching this all, just trying to pick his way through. Oh, is that Cardozo trying to come through? I think it is. Oh, sorry, Joris Peters. One of them, isn't it? Oh, is it?
Cardozo
yeah,
and the BMW, yeah.
Yes, that's it. Cardozo and the BMW. I was right the first time. I double-guessed myself. But he's trying to get involved as well. It's just a bit bitty, isn't it, early on?
It is. I'll tell you, I was going to say, Dara, you were impressed by our cameraman lying down on the circuit there. I was more impressed that the drone cam was able to fly straight through that advertising board. But nonetheless, we've got some pretty impressive cameramen out there on track. Better than me. I wouldn't be very good at doing that, but very good to see everyone staying intact there, 2 by 2 for a couple of corners, and being able to just whip the car around the outside through turn 5. Lots of runoff there at the exit, so that is an option, and it's of course quite an inviting braking zone. Of course, downhill, difficult to get the car stopped sometimes, an easy place to set up a move, but it's often we'll see drivers coming together when they hit the apex on that left hand side, and some drivers get forced off. It's tarmac for a while, and then it quickly becomes grass and dirt, which can be quite uncomfortable to go bounding over, but at the moment all's well, not too much to report. The only driver who's had an issue is Daniel Pillman. He's down toward, in fact he's right at the back of the order. He's lost 28 places from the start of this race, but Mr. Jan Sitchbury doing pretty well to hold on ahead of Simnor and Wever in behind. So the top 3 stay as they are, but as we said, Simnor in that Corvette up 3 places in class at the start. A pretty aggressive and well done start, I must say, by him. We saw him going into turn 5, making a move on the opening lap, and potentially, if he gets a little bit of a slipstream, not going to be close enough on this occasion, unless he thinks for it, and he does think of it, and he puts that Corvette up the inside, and there we go, just as described. A little bit uncomfortable on the exit there. Oh, and it's getting feisty between the pair of them. Yain thought about fighting that, but the other Mustang also puts his front wheel ahead of the rear, and he backs out as they head into that right-hander. Great move by Simnor to take up another place. Yain not too pleased because that's massively upset his rhythm, but it was almost perfectly timed, Dara, as we described how inviting it is to send it downhill, but it can be pretty difficult to get it turned in, and Yain was sent out wide there. Not too comfortable in that cockpit, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see if that then develops a little bit, because they are still quite close together, aren't they, in this train. Wever, I mean, he can see Sinner in third. The issue for these guys is they're starting to struggle to see the top 2. You just about see them at the edge of the frame, going through Canada corner, but I mean, they're shipping time away right now. This is the end of lap 4, and the distance between Milton and Richard in terms of time is 4.4 seconds. They're losing more than a second a lap from the start, which is not necessarily promising, and maybe there's a difference in strategy, but you wouldn't think it's that drastic, would you? No,
exactly not. Well, we're about to cross over onto lap number 4 of this race, so things begin to settle down. The tyres will be up to temperature now, so the driver's pace will begin to settle in. It looks like Yain has a good run here but he's not going to be quite as aggressive on this occasion as the Corvette was to him. This time, last lap, the DXT Magenta driver holding station for the time being, going to pick his moment. And as we said, you've got such a long time to take these positions and to work on the car throughout this 90-minute race. But Jaen's experienced enough not to rush things too much. You'll probably be thinking, well, let's see what happens in 80 minutes from now to that Corvette ahead of him. Although you can see in a straight line, he really does have the pace, but you can tell there, the engine, Jaen not looking to lunge on the Corvette. He's just going to hold on for now, maybe try and save a little bit of fuel, and he'll know that with the top two disappearing off up the road, the best he can hope for is a podium as things stand, and he's well within reach of that as it stands. He's got to pick and choose his battles, which he's doing wisely, and he's done before, and that's definitely led him to picking up some pretty strong results. Yeah, still watching behind him though, because all the way down to Lewis Kenyon here, it's a pretty tight battle. 5 cars in the running at the moment for that podium place.
Yeah, and they're all going to be clamouring for it. You can see, line of stern in a row, with that little gap back to Jared Love and Sven Baber. But Kenyon at the back, just twiddling his thumbs, waiting for an opportunity to maybe present itself, and he's brewing a cup of tea. I wonder what brand he'd use if he was doing that up towards kind of the corner. He goes maybe a move between Sinner and Stitchbury. Outside line for Stitchbury, the Welshman can't quite find it through there. And we'll have to try and find somewhere else to make the move. But again, all that battling is just shipping time away. 2 tenths, actually 3 tenths in that corner alone has gone out to Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. Who continues to try and keep Anders Myhre on a bit of a leash. But it's a considered start, I think, for many of these guys. 5 laps in, 10 minutes gone. It's a 90-minute race, but we're not going to be looking at any more than probably 43, 44 laps here. After the pit stops as well. So it's not not the longest race in terms of laps, and I think all of a sudden time's going to start disappearing quickly if you're not making too much progress early on.
We have a battle on our hands here between Ross Young, the McLaren on the inside. Adam Lynch looking to get the switch back, get the run defensive there by Young. Respectfully does, moves over to the inside line. This is a battle for second with P3 and P4 tightly in behind the 2 DXT cars as well. In picture, Ross Young ahead in the Cyan car. Danny Phillips, of course, championship challenger in the Pro class in behind here, just at the bottom of your picture. Nils Wever has had an issue down. He's off the road. That is turn 5, I think it is. Yep, so we've had another issue down there in turn 5. We'll see if we can see what's happened to him. But that will promote everybody up 1 place. Jan Stitchbury takes that position back, and Richard Simnor has gone off as well. There's Jan at the bottom of the picture. Simnor was in 3rd. Now he's down in 5th. So we'll definitely have to see if we can find the replay for that one. See what happened. It's again down at turn 5. Predictable. And it's come undone, sadly, for the German NJB machine.
I think it's the most tempting overtaking spot on the track, which is why we see so many people go for it. So no surprise that's generally where we see a lot of the drama happen. But yeah, we'll have to see, because he was very deep in that runoff, wasn't he? So we'll have to see if there was any contact. Here they go, underneath the cheese bridge. And up towards turn 5. Is there a gap? So he goes for the gap. Oh, does he just send it into Sim? Yeah, it's just too late. Brakes far too late. That's why he's so far deep. That's why Simler's dropped the positions, because he was the innocent bystander in that. And I don't think he'll be too pleased about it. Is this the view from? No, this is the view from Wever. I think I don't think he just misses his braking point, doesn't he?
Yeah, he knows.
Yeah, and tries to turn into it to try and avoid Simler, but damage is done by that point, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think as soon as you put the brake pedal on, sometimes you're just thinking, yep, there's no way that I'm getting slowed down in time for this. And it's such a wide corner that for Simnor going into the braking zone, he probably didn't get car left until very late indeed. He probably already started to apply the steering lock, and then before you know it, it's damage. Not too much damage. You'll be fortunate that the Mustang was a little bit deeper into the corner by the time they made contact. Otherwise, that could have been a pretty heavy side-to-side blow for what was at the time the podium man. So he is going to fight back. He's got Brandon Dyer and then Jan Stitchbury to contend with. That's opened the door even more to now what is a 6-second gap. In fact, even more, isn't it? It's more like an 8-second gap to the leader. So definitely a battle for the podium developing here. And Danny Phillips and Adam Lynch swapping positions as well, a little bit further down, side by side again through turn 5. A slight snap of oversteer for the DXT machine as he's forced to go around the outside, and he's going to keep it pinned, you know. He's going to be just about left enough room. Might have picked up an X there on the exit, and he's not going to send it up the inside of the Euro Titans machine at that point. But Phillips filling the mirrors, having a little look to the inside, thought about it, picked his braking zone, but he's going to have to accept that that is a loss of position. And so Chris Jennings on screen now. It's all from P1 all the way through to P5. Bobby Moss down at the back there, and on screen now. No elite drivers in between these drivers, so it's a fair fight in the top 5 in the Pro Class, which is exactly what we like to see. I wanted to mention earlier as well, for reference, the qualifying time for Mr. Anders Myhre toward the front of the order was a 2-minute 1.2. His fastest lap at the moment is a 2-minute 1.7, so we're about half a second away from qualifying pace, which, to be honest, Dara, with such heavy fuel, that's pretty good going. Well, for a man of Anders's quality, of course. I'm sure that's slightly different for some other drivers as you look a little bit further down the order. But yeah, good going so far. Half a second away from our qualifying pace at the moment.
Indeed we are. It kind of is as you'd expect. Strategy is going to come into play as well, isn't it? By the time we get to, what, the next 15, 20 minutes? Because you can't go quite halfway on one stint, so you're expecting 2 longer than a third distance stints and then a shorter one at the end. We'll have to wait and see. I'm a fan of that logo and the fact that he is now just Team Yorkshire T, just fully embracing it. I'm a big fan of that. He won't be a big fan of the fact that Simner's all over the road in front of him and almost defending a ghost road on the inside line. It's only going to cost them time to Dyer and Stitchbury, but they should stay in the train. It's good to get a view, actually. I think when you're in the middle of a train like this, knowing that this is going to be a race that's done on strategy as well, knowing that already, realistically, your race is for P3, P1 and 2 are gone, you can try and game it a little bit more, maybe lift off a bit more, save a bit more fuel, because the more fuel that you can save earlier on, it's just going to benefit you the longer you go into the race. You can shorten off the pit stops, you can maybe go a little bit longer, run a lower fuel load for longer, so then therefore have a slightly faster race car, and maybe make up the positions in the pit lane if the others are just going to scrap it out on the circuit. So a lot that you can do, and I think that that'll be what Lewis Kenny's thinking about at the moment.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's in a good place. He's got to hold on to that position, which is exactly what he's going to do. Pace, pretty similar actually, between the drivers here. 2-minute 2.4, 2-minute 2.5. So all these guys lapping within a tenth of a second. We'll see how this previous lap has gone when they cross over the line, which is going to come in just a few moments time, but it's all going very well for the drivers toward the front, of course. Milton staying just outside that 2-second gap. Brandon Dyer setting his personal best fastest lap of the race in the 2.3s, so he's finding a little bit of time in his McLaren, which is great to see. Everyone else coming across the line, fastest lap time still has not been beaten. That is obviously still in the hands of Anders Myhre. We have a fastest lap in the Pro Class by Mr. Danny Phillips, who sets a 2-minute 2.68. So he is only half a second behind the DXT Cyan car ahead. So 2 sister teams there. You can see the cyan and magenta colouring on a very similar livery there between the 2 McLarens. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle the next sequence of corners. If Phillips has found a rhythm in that McLaren, which it seems he has, setting the fastest lap in class, it'll be interesting how Ross Young handles that. Will he put up a fight? I don't expect him to just dive out of the way of his sister, but I would imagine if that McLaren of Phillips gets himself alongside, I can't see there being too much of a defence put on by the cyan driver ahead.
Nope, neither can I. Have to wait and see how it pans out, but you'd expect that's how it's going to develop here. Good that we have this trade towards the front of the field. We have this competitive nature in Pro, because I think it's fair to say that already it feels a little bit like the race is focused in Elite for the podium places. You've got 1 and 2, and then the middle of the melee for 3. But in the Pro Class, it's wide open at the moment. There's a move for position there. Simner and Kenny, as it is, 5th and 6th whipping around in Elite Class. They're side by side. Goodness me, as they come out of Canada corner. Kenny on the outside line would turn to the inside, but Simner's got the advantage before they get there. But the battling has meant that they've lost a bit of touch to the guys up in front. They lost nearly a full second through there to Stitch, Bree and Dyer. But Simmers kept the position. Kenyon went for it, but wasn't able to pull it off.
No, absolutely not. He's going to have to go again. It looks like he's got a little bit of a straight line speed advantage over the Corvette ahead, which he can probably use to his advantage. If he can get a good run out of the carousel, he can carry that speed all the way through the kink down to Old Canada Corner, which is another favourable overtaking opportunity around this circuit. Again, not too many of them really. You could make it go, well, actually no, more than you think now that I'm thinking about it. You could go into turn 1, maybe turn 3, even though it's a short run from the exit of turn 1. Of course, we've seen turn 5 down the bottom of this straight, which could actually be an opportunity for Mr. Kenyon here. Let's see if that Ferrari decides to pull out from the back of that Corvette, stays put at the moment. And then really, this entire sequence, if you get a good run, even though the run out of the corner into the braking zone are all pretty short, they are just sort of nice 90-degree lefts and rights, which offer a good opportunity for overtaking. So lots of chances for these guys to make a move. Let's see if anyone's brave enough to try it in this middle sector of the lap. But typically, you might want to wait for turn 1 or to get the run down through Canada Corner toward the end of the lap to maybe cement that position, hope to disrupt the rhythm of your fellow competitor. We saw that from Stitchbury earlier. It came at a pretty unorthodox place, and it can make it very difficult to recover that rhythm and recover that pace throughout the next sequence of corners. So drivers got to be a little bit strategic, but I think so early in the race, think about yourselves. Worry about putting your competitor off toward the end of the session. I think when maybe there's only 10 or 20 minutes to go, you can start being a little bit more aggressive if you've got the pace in hand. For now, work on your own car, save a little bit of fuel, and more importantly, try to conserve those tyres, which I think is what some of these drivers are doing at the moment. Gaps beginning to open up in the elite class. Same, however, cannot be said in the pro class. Look at all those coloured times down the timing sheet. Pretty much everybody is in a battle of their own, aside from those drivers in 14th, 15th and 16th, Dara, which is exactly what you like to see, and I'm sure the drivers out there are having a great time of it.
Yeah, you think that they are 20 minutes in to this one, pretty much everyone's still in contention. We've had a couple of casualties like Scott Pillman in the elite class, but almost everyone who's out of the race is still very much in contention and not dropping off the back. I mean, that pro group really have stuck relatively well together up and down the field. There's not a lot to separate all of them. But Sam Hockley's in the middle of it with his teammate just in behind as well. Of course, Hayden Ahmed, the team McLarens, they're kind of right in the mid-pack for the time being, hoping to move forward, and there are chances to do so. John Breitenbach only a couple of tenths up the road, and then Adam Smith is there too, who could be under pressure from the South African if he's not too careful. And look at them all as they work their way towards turn 5. They really are line of stern. It wouldn't take much for someone to pop out of the slipstream and send it. You wouldn't think Hayden Ahmed's going to do it to his teammate. For a second it looked he might, but in the end thinks better of it. Ollie Pimley looking to try and get into the top 11 as well. Of course, podium sitter in the first round of the season, looking to try and replicate that. We've got a long way to go from there.
Yeah, he's making the BMW of Jamie Bardwell reconsider his position as they head into the braking zone there. He did have to just step over to one side and make that defence, which is something that he wouldn't have wanted to have to do. It's just a short run. Oh, a snap there. That's happened before. You get that rear right up onto the grass, and before you know it, the car can come around on you. So something that Ollie has to be careful for. He's focused more on the car ahead than he is on his own line there. But he's done well to recover that. Not too challenging, but if you put too much of that rear right into the grass, it really can be quite aggressive. He's got a good run here if he can keep the power pinned, which he does, flat out and through the gears as well from 5th into 6th. It's going to force the MRC BMW to go defensive again. And as he looks around the outside, he's going to have to be late on the brakes. A little bit of door banging potentially there, and the BMW manages to hold on to that position. Great battle trying to get inside the top 11. This is what you like to see. Two beautiful looking cars as well. Let's hope the paint doesn't get traded as they go wheel to wheel once again. But straight line speed advantage potentially, Dara, or maybe it was just a brilliant run out of the carousel. It can be quite deceiving as well, because I think that's a corner where we're going to see a big pace differential between these drivers. And look at that, Bardwell knows it as well, because he's immediately moved over to the inside to defend.
He has indeed. Sorry, couldn't even sit there. He's just about going to hold on down in towards turn 1, and the BMW will continue in front. That is the biggest gap really anywhere in the pro class. 4 seconds between 10th and 11th, and I think Ollie Pimley is very much aware of that and doesn't want to allow that to get any bigger, wants to take his opportunity where he can. There's no slipstream effect. It's going to be helping Jamie Bardwell, but it will be helping Ollie Pimley. He lost about a 10th of a second through turn 2. That won't help him out too much. We'll see if he can have any go at turn 5. Brandon Dyer is trying to get past the Iron Stitchbury, whose purple and pink livery is very much under pressure at the moment. Dyer won't be able to make the move into 8, but into the carousel. Can he focus on the exit? Can he get a good launch? Can he get a good slingshot towards Canada corner through the kink? Let's see. A little bit of a wider line for Yarn, which suggests that he's going to get a nice second part of the corner. Look how he tightens up that exit and takes less curve on the exit. And looks like he's got a nice bit of power to maybe carry him through ahead. They fly through the kink, but that's the gain starts to happen for Brandon Dyer. Is it enough? He's gaining, you know, inch by inch, but is it enough to send? I don't think it will be into Canada corner this time.
Yes.
Right, look, he will send it. It is a late move. Will he get it stopped in time? Just about. A little bit. Oh, will he? No, he'll push Iron Stitchbury off the road. There's contact, there's a bumper off. Yarn flashes the lights, and this is now Simner trying to come through for P3 and take advantage where Dyer has left the gap open. There's no rear end on that car now. Blown that little battle up once again, so a little bit bitty. I don't think Yarn's going to be pleased, and Brandon Dyer's going to come into the pit lane to repair that damage now. I don't think that's an unwise decision.
No, I think not. Yarn's going to have a spring in his step now, a bit of a fire in his belly, because he's been the recipient of some unfortunate moves so far in this race. He's stuck behind the Ferrari on the inside line, and that Corvette of Richard Simnott is going to have to go right the way around the outside, and Yarn does get that move done. Approaches back from the left-hand side. Yarn leaves the Corvette with enough space. He's got that one done again, I think. Is he going to cut off the nose? Yes, he is. He shuts the door on that Corvette just about, giving each other enough space. It's Yarn probably counts himself lucky there not to have received a bit more damage. Went off the circuit, but Brandon Dyer came off worse then. So Championship Challenger P2 in the standings. I thought the Corvette was going to lunge on that Mustang again, but he stays and holds station for the time being. But yeah, Brandon Dyer, Championship Challenger in the pit lane, coming back out at the moment then, so that'll be his first stop. He'll have topped up the fuel, probably wouldn't have changed tyres, I would guess, in such a short amount of time, so maybe he'll consider that in the second stop. Not an ideal way to have to come into the first stop, but now we can go long right toward the end of the session, make probably one of the last pit stops in the session, and maybe if you can get some good pace. Let's see, actually, where is he on the timing tower? He's all the way down here. He's only got one car ahead of him, and then he's got a 10-second gap that he can drive into. So, potentially a blessing in disguise because of the amount of pit stops that these drivers have to deal with today. He'll have used his fast repair, so he won't have lost any time in getting that rear bumper back on. And potentially, while these guys squabble a little bit further up the order, he can put in some of those qualifying lap times that we know he is capable of. So, interesting to watch how Brandon re-emerges later on in the session. But for now, that leaves us with Kenyon, who takes up the position on the podium for the first time this race, and it's Ian Stitchbury and Richard Simnott, each who've had their moment in the top 3, but it's ever changing for these guys at the moment, Dara.
Yeah, and I mean, it's worth noting that, yeah, Brandon does come into the pit lane, and you know, he's used the fast repair, but because he's used the fast repair, realistically all that's happened there is he's just had an early pit stop. He's not lost any time relative, has he? So he will be in contention again when they all make their next stop, and particularly if they keep battling, he could find himself in a decent position. So, yeah, definitely one to keep an eye on. Kenyon's going to be delighted to be leading. Oh, spin though. Oh, my goodness me. Oh, careful. That is Jared Love, all on his own through turn 2. For a second, I thought that Joris Peters was going to go straight into the side of him, but he just about avoided as they worked their way through. But there was no one around him. He definitely did that on his own.
Sorry to cut you off there, Dara. I've lost audio, so if you could just take over for a moment, I'm going to see if I can figure out why this has happened.
Bardwell's in the pit lane. He has stopped in his box for what should be his first stop of the session. Kenyon is in P3, as we said before. He looks like he's going to try and pull that gap a bit. This is his first chance to, you know, lead the hunt against Anders and Milton. I don't necessarily think he'll start to, you know, close that 12-second gap anytime soon. They have been imperious so far, but this is his chance to maybe pull away, stretch the group, which includes now Stitchbury and Simner. Stan Baber's not a million miles away. He's just about there off the back. In the pro class as well, Chris Gunning has got a decent enough margin over Ross Young. 1.3 seconds, and I think Chris is going to hope that Danny Phillips starts to apply the pressure as they run their way in towards the next couple of laps. We are getting towards the first pit window. I don't think drivers will necessarily try and split this in thirds. I think they'll likely try and split it in almost 40%, 20%. Makes sense. At home, go a little bit further than the hour mark. Do that again on the second stint, and then just have a bit of a splash and dash towards the end, rather than a full pit stop. I think that'll be the plan as they work their way in towards the the first important phase of the race, where we can see drivers change positions without actually having to make the moves on the circuit, which, as we've seen, has proved to be a little bit difficult. You can put your nose in somewhere, but it's not always the easiest thing to be able to manage. There's a black flag there. Yeah, Paul Cowlishaw's got a black flag. Quite early for that. He's going to serve that drive-through. Not even 30 minutes into the race, and to get a drive-through, that's not going to bode well for him. Not too sure how that's happened, but maybe he picked that up on the pit entry. Maybe speeding the pit lane. Not too sure. But if it's a pit entry speeding, then that's going to come back to bite him quite heavily. Still, though, lots of drivers quite close in that pro class. You've got Young, Phillips, Lynch there within a second. Then you've Ahmed Hockley there in a train as well. And a few other battles as well. Good to see that it's a competitive group of cars. And I think you got the sound back, Joe.
We've returned. I have no idea what happened there. Nothing happened, but nothing like a little unplug of the USB to fix the problem. It's a little bit like turning it on and off again. But yeah, no idea what's happened over the last 2 minutes, but thankfully we are back and we can continue as though nothing happened, which is great news. Did I miss anything, Dara, in those moments?
Not really. You missed me waffling, which is not something to miss. So yeah.
No, it's
pretty good timing for you.
Very true, very true. So this interesting battle in the top 5 has been sadly reduced to just a 2-car battle. Mr. Lewis Kenyon has to defend against the Iron Stitchery, which he will do very well indeed. I must say, I love that I love that the branding, as you said before, just straight up Yorkshire tea. He's even got the cricket bat and ball in there, which I hadn't noticed a little bit earlier on. And the shot there with the sunglasses, it's a great look. It kind of reminds me a little bit of sort of like a British. If Britain was responsible for making the Friends TV show, then that would be the British version of Ross Geller. That's what I've got in my mind. Maybe you could argue Yorkshire tea would be the Central Perk replacement. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, actually, yeah, maybe. Or it could be a Costa, wouldn't it?
Oh, let's not be boring. Come on, let's not be boring. I mean, it's better than Starbucks. It's better than Starbucks.
Well, yeah, but it'd just be a Costa, wouldn't it? Because that feels British, doesn't it? In some horrible, twisted way.
Do we really not have like a better chain to offer?
No, there definitely are better chains. I'm just saying that I reckon if there was a British Friends, we'd probably end up with something like that. Maybe a Pret. Who knows?
Is Pret British? I'm not sure.
I think so.
Is it?
Do you know what, Joe? Do you know what? I'll have a quick little research. Do you know what Pret a Manger means in French, by the way?
Does manger mean to eat? So Pret is, I don't know, like good to eat or ready to eat or here to eat or something
yes,
about
ready. There you
ready.
go.
Oh, there you go. Okay, cool.
It is, and while you've done that, I can tell you it's a British company.
Is it really? Wow.
Yep.
And they've gone for a French headline. That's just disgraceful, really.
Quintessentially British, isn't it? Pret a Manger.
Pret a Manger. It does. Well, it screams British more than Starbucks, let me tell you. Although that's probably American. So we are truly waffling now, mate. Just let me. This is what happens when we see Yorkshire tea. We just can't help but start talking about other beverages. It's totally natural. It's totally normal. Danny Phillips won't be thinking about beverages. He'll probably be worried about the sweat that he's got going on at the moment because he's still behind the sister team car of Ross Young, and nothing giving. We said a few laps earlier, is he going to let him by if he gets a little bit close because he's in that fight for the championship? I think the swift answer to that one is no. So Jamie Bardwell was down the order, as we saw a little bit earlier on. In fact, did we see that, Dara, or was that happening when I was having my audio issue? I'm not sure exactly when Bardwell fell down the order, but he won, actually, last week in fine style, and now he's all the way down. Where even is he? All the way down the order somewhere.
He pitted just as the audio problem started. So yeah, so he's gone down the order, but it seemed routine to me. But yeah, that's why he's gone down the order. Well, that's what I saw anyway. If I've completely missed something, then I apologise, and someone could let me know in the chat. But yeah, I think it was just an earlier pit stop from him, rather than anything else too problematic.
Okay.
Bobby Moss has joined him in the pit lane now. Rain for a second, it was just the railing. But yeah, they're making their way down pit lane. I think 35 minutes in, we're going to be nearing the first stops. This is quite a large fuel guzzler, this circuit. It's not the easiest to save fuel on because you're at full throttle for a lot of the laps. So I wouldn't be surprised if we are seeing in the next couple of laps drivers being almost forced to come down pit lane.
So Danny Phillips did get himself past Ross Young going into the first corner, or I believe it was. So he's opened up a little bit of track space ahead of him to drive on into. But I was going to mention the results from this time last week in the Pro Class. It was Bardwell, Max Wheeler and Bobby Moss on the podium, and none of those are in contention for a strong result tonight. A decent result at best, but nobody inside the top 5. So a mixed bag, and I think, Dara, that goes back to what we saw in the class standings back toward the start of the broadcast, right? The gap from 3rd all the way down to, what was it, 8th or 9th was smaller than the gap from 3rd to 2nd, which is being illustrated very well at the moment, given the fact that none of the drivers that found themselves inside, in fact, give me a moment, and none of the drivers that found themselves inside the top 6 last week are in it at the moment. Chris Jennings was 7th. He's in 1st at the moment, so he's the best that we've got. But really is mixed pace, mixed bag, week in, week out down there in the Pro Class.
Yeah, it's good. It's good that we have that kind of very clear competition and very clear changing of the guard in the Pro Class. It keeps everyone on their toes and means that no one feels too safe going into every single evening. I think which is exactly what we want. And to have that turnover at the top means we have a tight championship the further into the season that we go. So always a positive, I think, for that to happen. A couple more pitches. Adam Smith and Mav Gardner, they're into the box now from the Pro Class, but the majority of them stay out once again. It's interesting, I think, how they're going about this. Very interested to see how it develops, particularly at the front. Do they battle? Do they just save? What does Phillips do if he gets right to the back? We'll have to wait and see.
Well, he's pretty close.
Yeah, exactly. But he's not quite close enough, is he, to make the move being 9.5 tenths back, but close enough to pick up a slipstream.
So again, 7 McLarens inside the top 8 in the Pro Class, which is similar to what we saw at the end of qualifying. And Danny Phillips, now that he's been released by his teammate, he might start to put a little bit of pressure on Chris Jennings then. So this time last lap, the drivers were only split by 3/100ths of a second. So pace awfully similar between the top 2 drivers. But if Mr. Phillips can get himself inside that slipstream, it will help him draw closer and closer to Mr. Jennings. Let's see what he's got in his rear view mirror there. Are we going to see that trailing McLaren getting closer and closer on the run down toward Canada Corner? I think on this occasion the answer is no. Under braking artificially gets a little bit closer, but once we get on the power, is that gap going to open up again? Maybe not, actually. Phillips might have had a little bit of a better braking zone. Could he have gained just a couple of tenths in the background there? Could you see that, Dara? I think Ross Young has gone off the circuit. That's allowed Adam Lynch to take up that position. He now finds himself inside the top 3 as the lead pair looked to come into the pit lane there, but at the last second, Danny Phillips stayed out. He's going to go around again. Got 53 minutes, just less, to go in this race. So 35 minutes gone, 50 or so left to go in this one. But a late jink there to the inside and then back out for Danny Phillips as Jennings, the race leader, comes into the pit lane, Dara. And did you see that there as well? Setting the fastest lap time in class, just Danny Phillips, at 2:02.5. And the fastest lap time in the Pro Class is still with Anders Myhre, which is about 7 or 8 tenths faster than the lap time that Danny's just set. So clear differences, as you'd expect, between the 2 classes. Sven Bebber picks up a bit of an issue there. I believe, is that a slow down or is that a black flag that he has to serve now? I think it's a black flag for instance, yeah. Is it not? Yeah, wow. Difficult for him so early on in the race. He's got a long way to go. He's going to be toe-to-toe with a disqualification as the German if he's not careful about it.
But there's the second black flag we've had, which is interesting to me because I don't quite know where they're picking up these incident points.
Busy pit lane.
Yeah, it is. I mean, goodness me. I mean,
More than
everyone's
half the grid, yeah. Half the grid is in the pits at the moment. There'll be some changes, and you can see the Lamborghini there just popped up and has gone for a tyre change. So many drivers opting to change after only half an hour on that one set of tyres. So they'll be coming back out on fresh rubber. Let's see how they handle those temperatures, of course. Pretty difficult to manage in the opening lap. It's a pretty common mistake for drivers to come back out of the pit lane on the route lap, think that the car's going to behave in the same way that it has for the previous 10 or so laps, and then you soon find that the oversteer kicks in and you find yourself facing the wrong way, which is very common indeed. Leaders are indeed in as well, Dara.
Yeah, they're in. Sven Baber's got a... Did we say that? Or did we...
Yes, we did.
That just appeared. Oh, okay, we did. I had a moment there where I thought we had, and then we hadn't. But yeah, he's going to have to serve that probably at the end of the next lap. But everyone at the front of the elite class is in, and Phillips is in this time by as well. So he should come out in the lead again by rights. But we'll have to wait and see. He's got a 50-second advantage.
Yeah, it was a 4/10 margin, Jennings in favour as they came into the pit lane. So you'll have to gain 4/10 on that in lap and during his pit stop. Let's ride on board with Jennings while I have a look at some calculations. He's heading through Canada Corner at the moment. His pit time was a 22.98, so just shy of 23 seconds stationary in the pit lane, or sorry, in the pit box, should I say? Danny Phillips, as he is still in the pit box, is a 29. Okay, it's a 30 seconds, so a slower stop for Danny. So unless he had a Hail Mary of an in lap, I think Jennings might hold on to this one. Let's see where he is as Danny Phillips exits the pit lane. They are going to be side by side temporarily, but that's a massive advantage gained there by Jennings. None of that was in the pit box. It was Myhre. So that means that Chris Jennings either had a mega outlap or Phillips lost a bit of time on the in lap, and he's under pressure here from elite drivers in behind. Pike is probably going to want to get a hurry on here. He might think about a move, stays where he is for the time being. That's not what Phillips wanted. Having a promising position as that pit phase started, he's now found himself 5 seconds back. We've got to try and figure out what happened there, Dara, because that is a hell of a lot of time to lose in just one lap. Yeah,
so for it to disappear, it's slightly crazy for Danny Phillips, but Chris Jennings is in a bit... this is delightful. It's beautiful and delightful. I guess both words work. Great position at the moment with that lead, but could change around again come the end of this second stint. They're not going to get to the end without pitting again, but the fact that Danny Phillips got 40 minutes in means that he may only have a handful of laps to go once he finishes, or once he makes his final stop in the race. So, yeah, still a long way to go. A lot to think about here. We're not quite halfway through yet.
All it comes down to simply is the time spent stationary in the pit box. Chris Jennings, like we said, 23 seconds. Danny Phillips was 30 seconds. So he lost a big chunk of that time, 7 seconds stationary, and he's actually made up, he's improved on the net time out there on the track, gained about 2 seconds in that sequence, but in the pit box alone, dropping 7 seconds, which nets to between 5 and 6, which is exactly where he sits now. So he'll be frustrated, although there's not much that he could have done aside from, being a little bit more conservative on the fuel, I suppose, and filling up less to get out a little bit sooner. But 7 seconds stationary in the pit box, that is a lot of litres that are being pumped into that GT3 machine. So, again, something giving here. We'll see how that plays out after the drivers take their second stop. But huge advantage to Chris Jennings to try to convert this race victory. And what would be his first race victory of the season, his second podium of the season. That podium came when, Dara? The first round, the first 90-minute session. So all's well in these types of races for Jennings so far. Just approaching the halfway point, still just over 45 minutes to go.
Yeah, and Chris Jennings, I think, has to try and take this calmly now. He's in a good position, doesn't need to throw it away. We'll keep an eye and see how he plays this. Adam Lynch, P6, he's behind Lewis Hammond. I mean, it's a shame in a way because that pit stop phase really has kind of blown open the race. In the pro class, it was quite a close field, wasn't it? But now it's kind of gapped out a bit after all of those pit stops have taken place. Interested as well, obviously through all of that phase, Brandon Dyer in the elite class. We said that he did, in the end just have an early pit stop. Would then be able to get to the end of the race with one more, just like everybody else. And he's in P3 again. So he's in a good position, just will have to carry a little bit more fuel. So Kenyon Peters should be able to come back at him, as is Kieran Sharp. As will, I should say, Kieran Sharp towards the end of the race. But after that contact, after that earlier pit stop, he's back into P3. It's just interesting to see where he goes, because he's even gained to the 2 leaders. Yeah,
exactly. He finds himself in a nice gap at the moment, and I wonder what's happened to Stitchbury, because I don't think he had the BMW of Joris Peters Riem around him, and he certainly didn't have this Lamborghini of Kieran Sharp around him either. All these drivers have been in the pit lane, potentially early stops for the BMW and the Lamborghini, which has confused us a little bit up here in the commentary box, unless Ian has made a mistake of his own at some stage, but he is now in 6th position. Lewis Hammond and Adam Lynch, the closest drivers that we have on battle. In fact, there might be a chance. There we go. He had to just come back over, did that McLaren, and he's bumping him through the corner there. 3 McLarens too closer, making contact with one another on the exit of that corner, but it's all heating up then in the pro class. Great to see Adam Lynch in behind Lewis Hammond, and I believe that's a blue flag ahead of these drivers, or is it Sven Bieber? It's Sven Bieber in the elite class, so out of battle between these 3 McLarens. Out of class.
And almost
between the 3 McLarens. Sorry.
And no, it's all right. There's a fear that he could get in the way though for them, which they won't want at all. Here comes Pimley up into P8. Of course, we said podium in the opening round of the season was P12 when we said that. Now into P8, and he's not a million miles away from P5. And let's see if he can make a move once again. It feels like he doesn't quite have the qualifying pace, but he's been able to put it together a little bit more in the races so far this season. And if we try and keep up that stat, we've just passed half race distance here at Road America. 45 gone, 45 to go. Right at the back of Mav Gardner, who did pit slightly earlier. He would run on the earlier stoppers, and that has promoted him up the order a little bit. Bardwell, of course, was another one of those. He's in this battle in P10, so he is back in contention as we expected. So, kind of shaking itself back out at the moment.
It is. Let's have a little ride on board with this man. It's easy to be neglected when you're competing so well at the front of the order, but that lovely looking RAA Sim Sports Ferrari doing what he does best, and he's timed us perfectly, Dara. Let's just ride on board for at least part of this lap. Give some screen time to the Norwegian 109 as he heads down toward the first corner. Sets a 2-minute 2.3. So again, not that close to the qualifying times of the session a little bit earlier on, but pretty consistent pace for him. Let's not forget, I think it was a 2-minute 1.2 was the qualifying time. So it was about a second or so off, of course, having just put fuel back into the car. So a bit more weight added to that Ferrari. But let's see how he handles these corners, braking slightly earlier, I would imagine, just to keep the car from going deep. There you go. So he's coming off the throttle nice and early, a wide entry, and a lovely apex there, using all of the track available on the entry and on the exit. That's what the best drivers do, Dara. They're not ragging the car through these corners. I mean, it's easier to not do that when you've got such a nice lead toward the front of the race. But he's picking his marks, he's using the track to his advantage, but more importantly, keeping the brakes cool, keeping the tyres cool, and keeping the tread on the tyres, which will serve him well. A bit of oversteer there, which shows the commitment. He's able to scoop that up without too much of a problem. Let's see how he handles the carousel. Nicely coming off the throttle, just giving it a little bit there to pinch the car back to the inside. Exits nicely. Fine driving, I think, safe to say here, by the championship leader, as you would expect. He hasn't missed an apex since we've been riding on board with him, Dara. It's a masterful display out there, isn't it, by the Ferrari driver?
Yeah, precision. Precision personified really all the way through for Anders Myhre. It has been all season. It's why he is where he is in the championship. And it's why we always come into an evening expecting big things from him. Because he is just that good. A little bit of a wobble through the corner. Oh, look. He's still going fast. He's still probably gaining time on everybody else on the field. The good thing for him here at Roads America is because it's a 2-minute lap, he's going to find traffic a little bit less regularly. Which I think will be a bonus for him, because it means he can have a little bit more time chilling on his own. 2:02.4 from him last time. Oh, just as I say, shouldn't get traffic. Oh, okay. Just about gets out of
moved out the way.
Would have been good timing if there was somebody who just someone jumps in his way. Yeah,
this is a pretty high level way to think about it, but when it comes to setting up the car, loose tends to be faster. Stiff is a little bit safer but slower, and you can see those moments of oversteer for the Ferrari are purely intentional. I would imagine that loose setup gives you a little bit more rotation, which of course means you have to drag the car through the corner less. Just nicely rotates. The rear wants to overtake the front, but that is how you find lap time. That's how the fastest drivers find their success, because they're able to coax the car through the corner with a bit more risk, but they have that quality to make sure that the oversteer doesn't result in a 180 spin, which is what we've seen on a couple of occasions by the 109 machine at the moment. And again, it's that fine margin when you have an open setup series like we have here, then how much can you push the setup to your advantage to, as we keep saying, just to rotate the car through these corners. That leads us nicely, actually, Dara, unintentionally, onto the fact that last night, I'm not sure if you're aware, we had the pre-season round for the Transatlantic Trophy, which was a pretty successful outing, and that is a fixed setup. So everybody comes into that with the same setup, the same tyres, the same fuel, the same everything, and it's about how you manage your brakes and how you manage the tyres that make the difference during that race. But it all went very well. It was my first time driving the GT4 ever, and one acronym for everyone here. It was just ABS, just constant ABS. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to drive the car, but in the end, it felt a bit like low grip, lots of steering lock. I felt it was around Silverstone. I felt like the Aston Martin going around Silverstone. If anyone's seen that from the Formula One a couple of weeks ago, where they basically take the mick out of the car and go full lock. That was basically me as we headed through Brooklands last night. But again, that's the difference between these open setups. The drivers have that freedom to set it up as they choose, with a bit more risk or a bit more safety, whereas in a fixed series setup, which we had last night, everyone's going in with the exact same tools, and I guess you've got to make the best of what you've got, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I like how, generally series like SRI have those evenings where like tonight we have the open setup, and then the evenings with the fixed setup, because I think the best drivers and those that have the most experience will kind of know how to set up a car well, to really hone your machinery to your advantage. And I think that sometimes can be quite daunting from guys, because jumping in, maybe the I rating isn't as high, and they're more focused on just finishing the race, getting a decent position, than of course honing a setup like that. To have then a fixed setup gives everyone that even chance, and gives everyone that exactly the same possibility of racing on an even keel. And I think it is quite fun to see the differences between the two, because here, like we said, you can set up the car exactly how you want to in this series, which is probably why you then get a little bit of variation, quite a lot of variation on what drivers are going for. As we see side by side, I'm going to go for it through here. But Lewis Hammond, and that's not even in class, is it? That's going to be... Oh, careful! Oh, dear. That's just too late. And there's a bit of a tap. Well, somehow Hammond and Lynch have gone through, but Jared Love just got it all wrong. I think he knew it as well. And he sent himself into the gravel. Yeah,
struggling there. It's the interclass battling has struck again in turn 5. We've seen that in other races, and we've seen it tonight as well. But the battle for 5th in the Pro Class continues. Sean Breitenbach pretty close in behind as well. He's picked up Jared Love as he recovers back onto the circuit. Sean won't be best pleased with that, because he's got Sam Hockley of Chaps Motorsport just up the road. Now he's got to get himself past another Ferrari if he wants to finish inside the top 10. And with all of that, the Mustang of Adam Smith for the Euro Titans Endurance Pink team is filling his mirrors at the moment. John's managed to get himself back through the carousel section as well there, I believe that was, Dara. So definitely going to try and go back. Let's have a look at how he did that, because I was too busy looking at the timing page then. So Mr. Love in that Ferrari as the drone magically flies through the advertising board again. Very wide by the Ferrari. And Jean picks his pocket and steps up through the inside, says thank you very much, gets back on the power, and puts a car between himself and the Mustang in behind. So good opportunistic move there by Breitenbach. Door was wide open by Mr. Love, and Breitenbach took all of that opportunity very well and made it count.
He did, and up into P11 now is John. Great livery that one happened for this car, isn't it? As he works his way up towards the start-finish line once again. Sam Hockley... No, that's just a timing page glitch. There was a black flag for Ollie Pimley, who served it, and he's now back in P18. It's a disappointment for him. But the fact that we've seen quite a few black flags for, you know, we're still in the first hour of the race, of course, of, you know, the normal kind of length that we'd expect. Intriguing to me, really, that we've got that many black flags. How many more could pop up then in the last 36 minutes? And realistically, we're not going to have any, you know, earlier indications to where they could appear until they get handed out, right? So, you know, it could happen to anybody, anytime. And that's definitely something we're going to have to keep an eye on here. And Jared Love got one as well. He's in the pit lane at the moment, trying to, I think, fix some of the damage to the car that he may have picked up going across the gravel. I wonder if we'll see him back out on track for the rest of this race. But still a lot to decide in this one.
There is. I was just looking at Jennings here. He's got a nice gap in behind him. No one in front and no one behind. So his pace might just fall off a little bit at the moment. His fastest lap of the race is a 2-minute 2.6. His last lap was a 3.3. So he is driving off from his own capabilities at the moment, just hoping to bring that McLaren home in one piece. He's doing exactly that. And as they watch the clock tick down, nearly 2/3 of the session done already. Onto lap number 27, I think it is now, for our race leaders and for Mr. Jennings, of course. 26 laps complete. So he's just going to keep that one ticking away for another 10 or 12 laps at this point. Nils Wever, after his earlier incident, is getting himself back inside the top 10. He's got to get himself past Bobby Moss, the car ahead, before he can start thinking about a challenge on that McLaren at the bottom of our picture, which is Andrew Pike. Trouble is, Bobby Moss and the driver ahead, the two TSRC cars. So something tells me that the Englishman here is not going to make the job easy for the German as he tries to bring that American muscle on through. So let's see how this one unfolds. Let's not forget that the McLaren in front is not in the class. There we go. Down the inside he goes into turn 5. Has enough of it to command the space and leaves plenty of room on the exit. Got his Mustang slowed down nicely ahead by the time they enter the braking zone. Gets himself slowed down and takes up that position. So he now can nicely look to chase after Andrew Pike ahead. That's one TSRC Esports McLaren gone. Let's see how long it takes him to get on the back of the next one, Dara.
I wonder how long it will take indeed. But time is starting to disappear a little bit. I mean, 34 minutes would be 17 laps or so, which, I mean, when you consider there's only, you know, 2 or 3 decent opportunities around the lap to make a pass, we're now down to about 50 decent chances to make an overtake in this race, which, you know, suddenly then therefore feels a lot less than what we'd otherwise, you'd otherwise hear from a 34-minute timer. You know, if we were at the Red Bull ring, I think you'd be a little bit more confident in having opportunities to make a pass. You can reach any corner, but here it's a little bit more difficult. You have to be more refined, so you're going to be more on it now as we get towards the final half an hour. Pit stop phase, you'd think it's going to come about the, you know, anywhere between the 10 and 20 minute mark, I think. So still a fair few laps to go in this stint. Depends if anybody's short fueled on that opening stint to gain track position for this secondary one. But, you know, interesting, because all those options were open, of course. You could do that. No one's saying you couldn't, obviously. So yeah, this could be an interesting one, I think. And this pit stop phase could be insightful as to what drivers were thinking earlier on in the race.
Yeah, I've got to say, Dara, your I know Mr. Bostock would agree with me. Your on-the-fly live mental arithmetic is always pretty impressive. I mean, I know the maths isn't that difficult, but doing it live and on the fly like that, and usually being very correct as well, by the way, I must say, is awfully impressive. My mental arithmetic isn't half bad, but getting it right in a live setting and delivering it like that, well done, mate. You do it every week, and it's usually flawless.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I try my best. Often, if it's ever then wrong, I then just fall back to it's just a guess.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm then
I mean, it is just basic division, but let's not brush over it. Let's just keep the compliments flowing. So, anyway, we've brushed over that, and what we need to get on to next is these 3 drivers, top 8, closest battle that we have out there on the circuit. Up the inside, thinks of BMW, and they do make contact. Jamie Bardwell gets himself past Mav Gardner in pretty unorthodox fashion, and the Chaps Motorsports McLaren thinks, thank you very much, I will take that place from you, as well as the BMW drives off into the distance. So last week's race winner is up into third, and now again the only non-McLaren inside the top 9. So that's a prize in itself, I think, for Mr. Bardwell of the MRC Rebels. Of course, doing well toward the front of the team's championship. This is the MRC machine in second place in the championship, behind Shucksmith, Petty, Fraser and Fraser down there in Split B. Let's not forget, of course, Split B live right now as well with Mr. Cowlishaw. So, not Mr. Cowlishaw, what on earth? That's the wrong Paul Dyer. Paul Cowlishaw and Paul Walsh are our SRI Pauls that we have at the moment. So Paul Walsh is live at the moment down in Split B. So you can see how the second of our MRC teams get on, the current team's championship leaders. But a good move by Mr. Bardwell. Again, not in the position that he found himself last week, but he'll be pretty happy to get himself up and past. However, he hasn't shut the door on Mr. Hockley at the moment, because he's only a few car lengths behind, and he's gaining in the run down toward the first corner.
Yep, and let's see, is there any chance of a move then down into turn 1? No, not close enough for the time being. Don't forget as well, Barbara pitted earlier than everybody else, so he could pit in again early. And to be honest, he pitted around the hour mark, so don't rule out him pitting, in the next 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how low he fueled the car. Those different themes that will then run us towards the end. Hockley, is he going to go for the move inside outside? Just looking for the line. Oh, into the back of him. I think he did give him a tap actually, and he's going to take the position. Maybe wise to give it back if there was indeed contact, and the flash of the light suggests that there was. Hockley may just take the penalty, and on the basis that gets reported. So I think there's only one way that's likely to go. He might just try and run away. Oh no, he's going to let him back through. There we go. So he's going to save himself any kind of further recrimination, you'd think. He'll try again.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I think he realised the mistake he made. You could see it from the onboard that he was pretty late on the brakes. I mean, minor contact, to be honest. You could argue that that's just a bump and a scrape, a racing incident that you've got to get by, but he probably knows that he can do it properly, and maybe he wants to do it properly. Of course, if you're in the chaps motorsport, you've got to be a good old fellow, a good old chap, and you've got to be, respectful out there, which is exactly what Mr. Hockley did. Gave that position back, and he's going to go for it again. Down the inside into Canada corner they go. This time much cleaner. The BMW leaves the space, looks to hang it around the outside. If he can keep a wheel arch alongside that McLaren, then that'll give him a chance to go up the inside again through the left-hander, which they do. They share another section of track, and all the while it's inviting the Ferrari in, who gets a little bit up on the grass there. Not ideal as they make their way through the final corner, and into the pit lane dives the TSRC esports machine, leaving these three out there on the circuit. John Brayton back in 10th, Bardwell and Hockley in P9 and P8. Hockley got that move back only half a lap later. We're going to see this battle continue between the pair of these, I would imagine, for the next few laps. I think Bardwell's been in the wars. He's been very defensive as well, Dara. I think he's probably had to take to that inside line a little bit more than he would have liked to, but he's going to accept the fact that a battle for P8 is what he's got on his cards tonight.
Yep, I think that'll be what he's aiming for in this race. 28 minutes still to go, so still maybe time for that to change around. We'll wait and see. Decent chunk of time still remaining, and again, like I said, those drive-throughs that may just appear out of nowhere, definitely something for us to keep in mind, because they really could just spawn out of nowhere for some of the faster runners in this race. And as Myhre still got that lead, 2 minute 2 once again. I think we're gonna have 14 laps left in this race, because by the time he comes into the pit lane and has another pit stop, he's not going to complete 14 laps by the end. We may even have 13 to go. So that's kind of the realm that we're talking about at the moment. Stitchbury still ahead of Sharp. He's not really been able to do too much to close down Joris Peters. Exemplified on the fact that he lost a tenth that time by. Lost 5 tenths to Lewis Kenyon. So it's not quite been the on pace for Jan. He's lost 6 tenths to Kieran Sharp just behind him. And there we go, Sven Baber. I was talking about keeping an eye on the black flags. He's been disqualified.
Yeah, so it was coming.
Something to be wary of.
Yeah, he picked up that drive through very early doors toward the start of the session. And there we go, out. The first driver disqualified. I think, Dara, the first driver disqualified from off tracks in the entire championship. I've never seen that that flag waved out there down the start-finish line. So, sadly for him, the McLaren driver will have to pull into the pit lane. Night over for the 198. Stitchbury, though, still has Kieran Sharp to contend with. Kieran set his personal best lap time on the last lap, 2 minute 2.6. Yain's best lap time is a 2 minute 2.1, so still 4/10 of a difference. However, on current pace, he's half a second quicker, is Mr. Sharp. So Yain has to watch his mirrors at the minute because that Lamborghini is firing up more than it has done for the entire session. There's still such a long way to go. It might be quite a big ask for the Mustang to defend all the while. If Mr. Sharp is beginning to find some pace, we'll have to wait and see how that one unfolds. Meanwhile, back in this battle, Sean Breitenbach putting pressure on Jamie Bardwell. He hasn't been able to stay on the back of the chaps Motorsport McLaren ahead, so now he has to look in his rear view at that Ferrari, which is planning his move, trying to make that pass, of course. Jean and Marcel, familiar with this series. Sadly for them, it's 20th in the team's championship. A place for them will be more points for them as well. So we're right on board with Jean for a little while, see how he eyes up the move on the 262 ahead, and let's see how they differ. The lines here have been quite telling through the carousel. It was a little bit wide, quite similarly matched, I think, in terms of distance from the inside there between the two of them. Has the barbecue bread racing Ferrari got a bit of a better exit? We'll soon see. The BMW might have to do more defending down towards Canada.
Yeah, let's see. John Breitenbach doing everything he can to get in the wing mirrors of Jamie Bardwell, who's just trying to fight with Sam Hockley himself. Doesn't really want to get bogged down in this battle. Brandon Dyer is coming to the pit lane. That's kind of what we expected. Of course, he pitted early. He's pitting earlier again. It just means he's going to have a slightly longer pit stop to fill the car up enough to get him to the end of the race. But I don't think a significant difference. We'll see where he can come out once everyone else has made their final pit stops. Pit stop there from Jamie Bardwell. Again, another one of the early pitters. So we're seeing that pattern shake out in this second round of stops. But I don't think we're more than 10 minutes away from the majority of the others coming in.
Let's take a little look at the field in its entirety. Then you can see Chris Jennings there in 8th, doing well inside the top 10 of the entire order, which is good news for him. And you can see it's just the likes of Craig Twaddock and Brandon Dyer, who's obviously just come in to the pit lane, who are sort of out of the order. 4 drivers out of this session. Mr. Sven, due to that black flag, and then Ollie Pimley, Schubert Cardozo and Daniel Pillman out very early in this race as well, of course. Cardozo out there, 20 laps down is that driver in the BMW. So 4 out from 38. Leaves 34 drivers out there on track, which is pretty good numbers. And Dara, only one of them under blue flags at the moment, which is quite rare. Usually by this point we have half the field which has been lapped. That is not the case so far. Anders Myhre making his way. Oh, that's a complete lie, of course. That's the timing tower throwing me off. I thought I'd click on Anders because I didn't quite believe what I was saying, and lo and behold, half the field has been lapped, which is as standard in this series.
Yeah, that feels a little bit more right, doesn't it? Especially with the pace that Anders has shown. Hang on, is that right? No,
yeah.
They just haven't started the next... Oh, no, you are right. No,
yeah.
Hang on. That doesn't make it... No, because Adam Lynch is still... Because where's Adam Lynch right now?
Adam Lynch is coming through Canada corner, just about. So yes, he's on the previous lap, of course.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I'm getting myself mixed up. We'll see.
No, but you're not wrong, because at the same time, like Twaddock and Young were on, the last lap when you started mentioning that, so not entirely sure, to be honest.
Let's wait and see.
So, yeah.
Action in the pit lane.
There we go. Few of them in at this stage. Jennings, of course, right at the front of the class, in Pro. He's coming slightly early. Does that give the advantage to Bobby Moss, Danny Phillips, Ross Young to maybe shorten off their pit stop? We might see.
There we go. McLaren around the outside of Joris Peters Weem as he heads out of the pit lane. Danny Phillips again. I wouldn't call it pressure because I would imagine that these two may well be in the same radio call. So we might be communicating between one another, but it's the closest pair of drivers that we have on track. Chris Jennings is back out of the pit lane, just in behind the Dutch Corvette. Quinten van Winkeden there for TSRC Esports, just gets himself ahead of the pro class leader. Not the worst place to come back out, but I'm sure Jennings would have been pleased to have been ahead of that Corvette, which would have given him that free air that he had when he came back into the pit lane, which has seen him served well so far in this race. He's got just under 22 minutes left to hang out that McLaren, keep it clean and keep it steady, and he can convert that first race victory of the season. Fingers crossed that he manages that one. Bobby Moss then inherits the lead of the race temporarily. Not net, of course. He'll come back into the pit lane as well very shortly, but a nice moment for him to lead his class around. This is lap number 32, about to cross onto 32 laps complete. This is lap number 33 now for the leaders. Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, look at that, Dara, 17 seconds clear, over 20 seconds to the leader, splits the podium, which is pretty crazy. And sadly, the interval times there, Dara, in the elite class are quite boring, frankly.
Yeah, well, if we're not going to sugarcoat it, then it's a little bit dull up there.
Sorry, maybe I should.
Well, no, we've got the pro class to keep us entertained, that's for sure. Phillipson Young for the lead after, an hour and 10 minutes. It's still under a second. That's fun. And obviously we've got those that are already pitted that are going to shake out in the mix as well. Bobby Moss is in. He was in that group as well. So a lot going on still in pro. It's just kind of the similar story that we know from Myhre and Dennis, the top two in elite class. But just stabilised, isn't it? Tomlinson-Dennis gained a little bit of time back in the last, even half an hour, I think. That gap was about 4 seconds. It's now 3. I mean, we are talking minute differences, but still a slight change. 20 minutes left to go then. There's Bobby Moss coming out of the pit lane, you could see there. He'll come out behind this battle of Baker and Jennings, who are a couple of seconds behind Quinton Van. But I think there's still battles to be done in Elite, but they're a little bit off kilter because of the strategy. Not everyone has made their second stop yet. Some have, some haven't. So still more to see.
It is, Chris Jennings leading this trio of cars through the opening sector now, and Adam Baker probably thought about trying to get a move on the elite class driver, which is the McLaren in the middle of these two. Moves to the inside there as we head downhill toward turn 5, but nothing giving there, of course. The Corvette yet to come back into the pit lane, so he will have to make his second stop very shortly. Of course, Jennings has been in and back out, so he is running toward the checkered flag now. No more scheduled pit stops for our net race leader in the pro class. Out there doing very well. The gap around Myhre and Stitchbury has settled down a little bit. Kieran Sharp is his nearest competitor, of course, in that Lamborghini. So Myhre has stayed out, and where's Kieran Sharp? There he is down there. Yeah, so Kieran is coming at the pit lane, so we'll see how he gets on a little bit later on once Myhre enters the pit lane, which I'm sure will be very, very soon. But good race by Myhre so far. Hasn't been, I don't think he's had the most consistent start to the championship. Of course, he had that good result around Bathurst. I believe it was a race victory after many of the leaders went off. But I actually don't see him in the top 12 in the standings. So, yeah, Myhre's got the pace. He always has, and he's had some good results. This will be another one for him, but sadly not enough to see him inside the top 12. And he's had his fair share of things to deal with tonight, Dara. He's had a good few battles to deal with, plenty of different drivers around him, and now he finds himself out there all alone. That will soon end, though, once he comes into the pit lane.
It will indeed. You could expect him to come in relatively soon as well. Hello, Baker, just behind Jennings down in towards turn number 1. And they'll continue onwards in that order. Oh, maybe a bit of a look at turn 2. Nothing happening there this time by. But there is still the brewing to a battle there. But it's just not quite formalised just yet. There aren't that many close battles in pro for the minute, but that's because they are all kind of off strategy at the moment. We'll get a couple once everyone has come in. Outside line then for Adam Baker. Can he hook it through there? You would expect so. The up and under might work, but just not enough minimum apex speed. He won't find the line through there, and Jennings stays in front for the time being. Jennings, I think, though, in the back of his mind, is thinking more about Phillipson Young right now.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I'm not sure if it's because the opening round of the championship, the last 90-minute session was the start of the championship. Maybe it was because it was my return back into the commentary box, but this race seems to have passed a lot quicker and a lot more enjoyable than it was for me in the first round, which is great to see. In fact, I'd quite like it to go on a little bit longer. We've been served up with some good racing. Sadly, the gaps beginning to spread out, but once everyone's completed the pit stops, we'll get a better idea about how those final race results are beginning to take shape. But one thing is for certain, Jennings has to be careful here, because that Corvette hasn't been into the pit lane. He does not want to risk contact with someone who is not in his race, especially with the openings that he's had over the last couple of weeks. So just be careful, Chris. No, nothing unpredictable. Try not to get on the brakes too early to catch out that Corvette. It might be time for that Corvette to come into the pit lane. Let's see. We round the final corner. Is he going to stay out, or is he going to come in? He goes around for one more time. Jennings ought to be very careful here, because he's been putting him under pressure for a couple of laps now, and Adam might fancy his chances to just have a bit of fun, really, and get himself past, even if it doesn't count for much. We'll have to wait and see how that one unfolds, but fingers crossed it all stays well for Jennings. Not much to report anywhere else on the grid. This is the closest one singular pair of cars that we have out there on the circuit. And Anders Myhre, race leader, coming under the bridge and over the crest to start on what is lap 37. 15 and a half minutes left to go.
Yeah, I think there's going to be 8 to go, even with the pit stop that he's got to serve. His rival, Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, has come in, and can stay out a little bit longer. He'll be getting blue flags for the car in front right now, but they should get out of the way on the run towards turn 5. Let's see how quickly is the move done. Or is he going to get a nice slipstream? No, I think he quite appreciates slipstream, and then a late pull out, and that's exactly what it looks like he's going to get. Which is similar in as well in that elite class. So he'll make his way down pit lane. But Kenyon stayed out, Stitchbury stayed out. So, yeah, interesting to see how this one pans out. But we are into that definite phase of the final stops.
Yeah, and this is where the fun begins with the low fuel. The drivers will just be topping up enough to see them over the checkered flag. They'll be in the black box on the dash in the car, trying to really minimise the litres that are getting put into the car. Of course, iRacing does have that auto fuel feature. By default, it adds a little bit of a wobble for the race leader there. Not too common that we see that from him, but yeah, the iRacing auto fuel feature automatically puts an additional lap of fuel in on its default setting. The drivers can optionally bring that down if they want to shave off some lap time. And again, funny that we're talking about this when it comes to setting up the car and driving the car to its limits while we're watching our race leader again. But again, that's the difference maker, isn't it, Dara, when drivers know exactly the kind of fuel that they're going to need, and sometimes they can drive to a fuel target, and that might mean you can knock a few litres out of the car, out of the pit stop, which might save you some time there, and that time can then be won back later on by just approaching the laps slightly differently toward the end of the session. But not everyone's cup of tea, that. A lot of people, like to enjoy the freedom and the pace of a light GT3 car, and they like to send it toward the end of these laps, where we begin to get a little bit closer toward the qualifying times. Of course, not awfully close. We're about 6/10 away from the pole time, I believe, a 2:05, and I think it was a 1.9 if memory serves me correctly during qualifying. So Anders getting closer and closer, inching a little bit, but still nowhere. In fact, no, it wasn't a 1.9, it was a 1.2 in qualifying, because the fastest race lap of the session was a 1.7 by the RAA Sim Sports Ferrari. So yeah, not quite close to the fastest pace of the session. Track might be heating up out there as well as the day progresses, but still all's well for our race leader yet to come into the pit lane. And we have a nice not a battle actually, out of class, but some cars getting close together. This is Mark Collicott in P3 in the pro class. He's got the BMW of Joris Peters Weem and Richard Simnor in the Corvette ahead of him to contend with for now.
Yeah. There, Phillips and Young into the pit lane. Where do they come out against Chris Jennings? That's the interesting battle there. Falconer in, Craig Twardock in as well. They all now drop a little bit further back, as we would have expected. Ross Young's just crossed the start-finish line, so he should be coming out relatively soon. As should Danny Phillips, or unless their pit boxes are that far down the pit lane. Oh, no, their pit boxes are just that far down. They're leaving the box now. Where is Chris Jennings? He looks like he's just about to cross the start-finish line himself. He's coming up the hill. Oh, this is going to be quite close, actually, I think. Ross Young and Danny Phillips are trundling to the end of the pit lane. Where are they? on the right-hand side. Ross Young, they're just coming up to speed. Oh, this could be close into turn 1. Outside line for Jennings. He's just ahead of Phillips, but he's not ahead of Ross Young. Young's got the advantage and the lead with, what, 6 or 7 laps to go here. Young, doing the strategy, going longer on that second stint, has worked out for him. And Jennings, who had a little bit of calm through that second stint, now has a big battle on his hands.
Yeah, and there's lots of action going on the track here. Not what you want if you're in the seat of Chris Jennings at the moment. It's one thing to have to reclaim the race lead, but to do it in such a busy, dense pack of cars here heading downhill toward turn 5, and that's contact. Is that going to take out Jennings? Oh my goodness. He was millimetres there away from being the collateral damage in that incident, but who is that going down then? Danny Phillips, championship challenger, struggling there under braking. I think it was the Chaps Motorsport machine that made contact with him. Jennings lucky to get away with that, but that really allows Ross Young to scamper up the road there. Look, right at the back of the picture is Chris Jennings, and that's a massive gap that he has to try and overcome. It's been a masterful run here on the strategy for Ross Young. It's come back to him in the final 10 minutes of this session. We'll go back and see what happened with that contact going into turn 5, but what a moment that could have been for Jennings. That could have taken his race from a pretty high to a damning low there in an instant, Dara.
Yep, thankfully we got away with it, and he's not going to be out of the picture totally. But Ross Young's going to be loving life right now, isn't he? He's come in from the lead. He's come in from the lead, and he's come out still in the lead, so he's in a good position with just 10 minutes left to go. Jan Stitchbury's just come out of the pit lane. Him and Brandon Dyer are going to swap over. Well, they might meet each other by the end of the race, and obviously the reason they're off kilter on strategy is because they had contact early on in the first place. This is what we saw a minute ago, and this is how close it got.
Oh, it wasn't the Chaps Motorsport car, my bad, but look at that. Holy moly. Let's watch that one more time, and I think if we ride on board, I think the best option will be to ride on board with Craig to try and see how close that McLaren got to the back. Oh, the smoke covers it up nicely. It's going to be difficult, I think, for us to pick that one out. Where we're going to watch this one more time once I can find Danny Phillips on the timing tower. Okay, let's watch this again. Let's ride on board with Phillips, and this time from the rear cam. Let's see if we can pick out just how close Danny got to the rear end there. Let's see. We're going to make contact. He's going to spin round. Okay, we're not going to be able to get any better than that, I'm afraid. But yeah, very, very difficult moment for everybody involved. Worse, of course, for Danny Phillips, who has recovered. He's still in 5th. Not the worst thing, but wow, that front end of that car, and I'm sure the rear has seen better days. So it's going to be a case of damage limitations now. He's got a 6-second gap to Mark Collicott down in P6, and he's got just under 9 minutes to sort of wrangle that McLaren around these final few laps to try and bring home some points. Brandon Dyer, I think, might have just got himself past Jan Stitchbury. Yes, he has, going into Canada Corner. That is the altitude freer McLaren past the DXT Magenta car. Up to 4th he goes, Dara, and let's get a replay of that one for us, for you, sorry.
Yeah, let's have a look. And
that
this
can't be right.
is...
Oh, it's in the pit lane. Is it?
Oh, yes, it is in the pit lane.
There
It's
you
on
go.
the exit. In towards turn number 1.
Whoa.
Oh, my word, that's a late time to the inside. Well, that's one way to make a move. Goodness me,
that was, I think that was unnecessary, do you not? It looked as though he was carrying so much speed into the braking zone. Let's watch it again, and let's see. Let's listen. I mean, I wouldn't... oh, my word. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. Let's see what Jan would have seen. He gets up to speed. Gets the hammer down. Maybe... Did Brandon think that Jan was going to come over and cover the line? Yeah.
Right, yeah. I think he panicked and thought, I'm either going to hit him on the outside line, spin across my nose, or I'm going to send it. Let's look at it on board again. I think you can see, or you can see it from here. Jan moves across. I think there he thinks, he's going to come onto my line.
Yeah.
And so bails to the inside. And you know what? Fair enough. Beautifully done.
Yeah, the more that I've watched that, the less risky it seemed, and it was well done, actually. Good move. Oh, Brandon Dyer has had an incident because he's now back down the order. So we'll have to find out what happened there. Jan Stitchbury now passing. Oh, I shouldn't have cut away there because we have live pictures of a battle as the Lamborghini looks to make a move. He hasn't made it stick on that occasion, and I doubt he's going to make it stick through the carousel section. Let's just watch on just in case, but we do have that replay. We can see how Jan Stitchbury got back past Brandon Dyer, and then he must have had an incident because Simno and Eurospeed as we have also got by the Altitude McLaren. Let's go back and see how that one happened.
Yep. Look then, as this is down in towards turn 5. This is Jan Stitchbury trying to re-overtake Brandon Dyer. They get close in towards turn 5. Stitchbury with the slight advantage. Into the braking zone they go. Is it too late from Dyer? Looks all fair. Looks all fair. Clip.
Difficult.
Stitchbury wants to come back onto the road. Brandon Dyer's trying to block him off a little bit. Yeah, I think the helicam shot's going to be or the drone shot's going to be the best here to get a sense of how far across we move. With Stitchbury comes into the corner. Dyer's got a very tight line. He's still turning, straightens up a bit.
It's the gravel, I think, just upsets the rear end of that Mustang. Difficult one for the stewards if that ends up being reported, because it's sort of 6 and 2 3s. I mean, Yayan gives him enough room, and Ross gets the car slowed down. He's entitled to be where he is. Sorry, not Ross. Brandon is entitled to be where he is when the contact is made, and I think Yayan kicks up a bit of gravel. The rear steps loose, and contact is made. So that denotes him down into 7th. But hey, great set of replays between those two drivers to add a little bit of spice in the final few minutes here. 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, not long. Time has kind of disappeared from us in this one.
And look at this.
A couple of laps. And yeah, 3-way fight for the win. Ross Young's been reeled in by Chris Jennings and Bobby Mars. That's not what he would have wanted to see. I think these guys have got at least 3 to go.
Yeah.
They may even have. Excuse me, 4, depending on Anders Myhre. Where is Anders Myhre?
Final couple of corners now. He's going to be making his way out of Canada. Oh, final corner already. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so he's got 3 to go, which means that these guys basically have 3.5. So a lot of time for them to battle it out.
Yeah, and what you can tell me now, Dara, is how many overtaking opportunities that? Because you said these guys had 50 a little earlier on, and I wonder what that adds up to when you when you only have 3 laps left to go. Jennings will be thinking about that in his own mind, won't he? Picking his moment. Is he going to go early, or is he going to try and save it until the last couple of laps and maybe make it count? But he's also got to worry about Bobby Moss, who has had a great race in his McLaren as well.
Well, when you think about it, I do feel like, turn 1 and 2 kind of is just the same kind of complex of corners. Yeah, there's a bit of a straight between them, but if you're going to make the move, you have to make it through both of them. So that's one chance. Turn 5 is another, and then you can't really make anything work until Canada corner. So I think really around the lap, you've got 3 good chances. They've just made their way through Canada corner. They've got 3 laps to go, so I reckon there's about 9 chances, good ones, for Jennings and Moss to make a move for the end of the race. And you're going to want a couple of attempts early on, or in the next lap or 2, and then maybe probably go for it on the final lap. You can't really leave it too long. That's the thing about Red America. You get a lot of dead time around here. Down towards turn 1, down towards turn 5, down towards Canada corner, where time's evaporating, but you're not really gaining or losing too much. So yeah, there's 3 laps to go, but I think there's less opportunity than you'd otherwise like to think.
Yeah, you're absolutely right then. So as we said, not too many opportunities to make an overtake remaining for these guys inside the top 3. Jennings closer to Young than Moss is to Jennings. Very different story up there in the elite class. That is not gap times, that is interval times. 9.5 seconds to the race leader, 15 seconds from P2 to P3, and a further 13 seconds from P3 to P4, which is a massive amount of time to separate our top 4 in that class. Same cannot be said, however, for these 3. Only a few car lengths separate these 3 McLarens who are doing battle for, let's not forget, big points on offer. I think it's 150 points for the race winner, comparatively to 100 points for a normal race victory in those 1-hour sessions. And Jennings will feel like he deserves it. I mean, they all deserve it. Bobby Moss, no disrespect, Bobby Moss probably less so than the other 2 drivers, but he's there, and therefore he deserves exactly what he's going to get. But Jennings has led the race. He took pole position. Young's done very well on the strategy, and so all we can hope for is that they all finish on the podium in whichever order they end up in. But I do hope we see some action toward the end of the race here. 2 minutes left. Anders Myhre is just leaving sector 1 or sector 2 at the moment, so he's approaching the halfway point on what is lap number 43, and it looks like Bobby Moss has actually got the pace over Chris Jennings. Jennings not really able to close the gap to the lead McLaren. It might be a case of holding what you've got, Chris, rather than trying to go for more, which would equal his best result of the season. But when he's so close to a victory, he might really fancy his chances of trying to clinch that top step of the podium.
Yeah, and that top step of the podium, I think, is what they're all going to be targeting here. And there's 3 of them in the chance with 2 to go. Ross Young, Chris Jennings, Bobby Moss, all in it. But Ross Young looks like he's just about gained a slight edge, hasn't he? Over the last lap or so. And you can see a couple of tenths he gained on Jennings that time by. So whereas Jennings needs to make the move, he's just not quite there to do it yet. Simner and Joris Peters are fighting over P5. Oh, careful! Towards turn 6. That nearly got a bit dicey, but Simner's ahead for the time being.
Yeah, and you might stay ahead because it's going to be difficult to make a move. That BMW, typically quicker in a straight line if you set it up in a good way, late on the brakes. Only just a few centimetres there separating the rear of that Corvette to the front of the BMW. Let's ride on board as they head through the carousel. Tighter line again by Peters Weem, which could potentially hamper the exit a little bit because the Corvette might have just been able to keep his minimum speeds up there slightly. I think it is favouring the Corvette. Let's see as they throw it into the kink here. Running now down towards Canada corner. Not gaining enough to think about a move, I don't think, is the Dutchman, unless he really fancies himself on the brake. Stays where he is for now. We'll jump between this battle and, of course, the lead of the race. We also have Kieran Sharp on the back of Brandon Dyer. 2 drivers who would have fancied a finish inside the top 5. They're going to have to settle for P7 and P8 at the moment. Jennings is still, oh God, look at that, they're equidistant more or less now, Dara. It's ebbing and flowing, which way, and then the other. 3 seconds on the clock. The checkered flag will be waved the next time that, the white flag will be waved the next time that Anders Myhre crosses over that line. Or will it be waving already, Dara? It will be waving already, right? So this is the white flag. Yeah, this is the white flag lap. Final lap of the race then. So we have just a handful more opportunities for these drivers. Closest battles is this one, as we just said, to get themselves inside of the top 5. This is 4 now, and side by side, here we go. BMW might fancy it around the outside of the Corvette.
Oh, yeah, careful. Danny Phillips has got a drive-through penalty. Oh, no. At the end of the race, it's going to take him out of contention. They are rubbing doors, aren't they? In towards turn 5, and it will be Simner who's just out in front. They're on their final lap. Jennings and Young and Moss have just started their final lap, and Jennings is right up behind Ross Young right now. Why is there a Ross and a Moss? That's not helpful at all.
It's actually Andrew Pike. It's Andrew Pike.
It's Andrew Pike. Oh, no. So... well, Andrew Pike's not going to get much of a happy message in the end from Jennings and Moss, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. And yes, I thought the same thing. It's added another McLaren into this train of McLarens, which does us absolutely no favours up here. And it looks as though Andrew's maybe got a little bit of pace. I'm not really sure where he's come from, to be honest, unless it was an incredibly late stop. He wasn't really in the frame, I don't believe, earlier. And he's got to be careful not to... Well, I say not to impact the race result, but ultimately that's what he's doing. He's distracting Young, who theoretically shouldn't have a car so close to his... I mean, I'm saying this hypothetically. He shouldn't really have a car so close to his rear view that he has to worry about. And Chris Jennings has now got another McLaren separating him from that race victory. So there's not really going to be much of a giving here. And I've missed Anders Myhre crossing the line. Apologies to you, Anders. You've done that many times before. You're going to do it again. Another race victory for him. Dominant display. Milton Tomlinson-Dennis happy with his P2 finish, and Lewis Kenyon, the man who takes the place at the final place on the podium. Back to this battle then in the Pro Class as we round the final set of corners. I think it's going to be the day for Ross Young to take a race victory of his own. He didn't really look like he was going to be in contention, and I think that might be his first race victory of the season for the DXT Motorsports Cyan team. Jennings did everything he could. He'll have to settle for a joint best finish of the season in second place, and big congratulations to Bobby Moss as well for getting himself up onto the podium. It's some good results all round. Familiar in the elite class, some differences down there in the Pro Class.
Yeah, great win in the end for Ross Young in Pro ahead of Jennings and Bobby Moss. He'll be delighted. I think Jennings and Moss will be annoyed that they didn't get a better chance on the final lap to give it a go, but I think another happy man's going to be Lewis Kenyon quietly went about his strategy, got P3, he'll be delighted. Anders and Milton were gone really the whole race long. Here comes Jamie Rabble and Adam Baker to the line. Who's going to win the drag race? It's going to be side by side. It should be Jamie Bardwell. Bardwell's a village near me. Sorry, I'm just getting completely confused. Bardwell just ahead of Adam Baker, and what, about half a tenth in it? Not much at all.
Yeah, great effort here, riding on board with Chris Jennings. Lovely livery, and a good guy as well. Met him briefly last year down at Donington Park. We had a sort of spontaneous get together. A few guys from Axis and DXT were down there. I was down there with Bostock and Mr. Mackay and Nathan and a few of the other admins. Walsh was there as well. So I met Jennings, one of few on the grid who I've had the pleasure to meet. So good to see him performing well. Good to see him matching his best result of the season. Ross Young already in the pit lane, didn't fancy a lap of honour out there. So Jennings is what we have at the moment, and plenty of eyes on this man as well, Mr. Ross Young. Good for not Mr. Ross Young, Mr. Lewis Kenyon, Yorkshire T. Cracking set that we've got there for the 195 British driver. So yes, good all round for a lot of these drivers. What could be Lewis's best result of the season as well, which in a very competitive elite field, I'm sure he will be satisfied with that as he brings that Ferrari into the pit lane. The finishing order then, Ferrari, Ford, Ferrari and a Ford, of course. The start of this race was the Ferrari trailing 3 Fords, so changed toward the end, and that will round us off nicely. We can bring you the race results, of course, as always, starting first with the elite class. So another victory it is for Anders Myhre. The 109 RAA Sim Sports Ferrari takes maximum points, 150 points for him in his 4th victory of the season. It's been 0 or 0 for him. 4 wins and 1 DNF from 5 rounds for the Norwegian. Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, he's continuing his fine run of form. It's his 3rd second place finish in 3 races, 3 in a row for the ST Mustang. That will propel him nicely a little bit closer toward the top 3 in the championship. Lewis Kenyon on the podium for what I believe is the first time this season, so big congratulations to him for Team Yorkshire T. Yain Stitchbury getting another good result under his belt. Mixed bag, hasn't attended all the races and hasn't always had the best results, but a P4 with a lot of drama thrown into the mix for him. He'll be satisfied with that for DXT Magenta. Richard Simnor will finish in 5th for DCW Racing, ahead of Joris Pieterswiem, the privateer Dutchman, the 151 BMW, ahead of Brandon Dyer. He had the pace to do a lot better than he did, but again, after a bit of damage and a few incidents, he's going to have to be happy with the points that he will bring home in 7th for he and his team. Kieran Sharp and Nils Wever will finish in P8 and P9, ahead of Patrick Faulkner in P10. Craig Twaddock, who had an incident toward the start of the race, recovers nicely up to 11th place and finishes nicely ahead of his teammate, the 2 TSRC esports drivers, finishing 11th and 12th for Andrew Pike. Jared Love in the DC Motorsports machine had an issue a little bit earlier on with some contact, sending him off the track down toward turn 5. He settles in 13th, ahead of Sven Beber, the German. Sherbert Cardozo in 15th, 38 laps down. Daniel Pillman in 16th, 41 laps down. Neither of those guys will be scoring any points, even though they are inside the top 20. I believe they'll be outside of the point scoring threshold, which, if it hasn't changed, it should be at 75% of race distance completion. So sadly for them, they finish in a good position, but no points to be brought home for those guys in the elite class.
And then over we go to the pro class, where in the end it was less than a second splitting our podium sitters. Ross Young ahead of Chris Jennings and Bobby Moss. 3 strands of UK flags there as well on the podium, but it was an all McLaren top 6. As you had Adam Lynch, Mike Collicott and Sam Hockley, and obviously 6 different teams between them. DXT Cyan, of course, happiest with the win. Axis SimSport, TSRC on the podium, and then ETE, DCW and Chaps inside that top 7. John Breitbach broke the McLaren train. He finished in 7th, but less than 20 seconds off the win. He was in that Ferrari just ahead of Lewis Hammond by less than a second, who finished in 8th. They had a bit of a gap back to Benjamin Hunter in the the Mustang, in the BMW. He was ahead of Adam Smith, who was in the Mustang, in P10. Hayden Ahmed and Danny Phillips in 11th and 12th, with Jamie Bardwell, my goodness me, and Adam Baker side by side across the line, weren't they, in 13th and in 14th. Quinton Down was 15th, 45 seconds off the lead, which after 90 minutes, to only lose a second every couple of minutes over the course of the race for P15 is fantastic to see how competitive this class is. Jesus Saavedra, Mav Gardner, James Foster, and James Paisley Knight are all listed a lap down, but they were just behind our overall race winner rather than a lap down to Ross Young. Lawrence the Dapper was disqualified towards the end. He finished in 20th officially, and I think there's a couple more just off the bottom.
There are, but it's not scrolling. That would be Paul Cowlishaw and Ollie Pimley.
There we go. Thanks, Joe.
Of course, of course. So that concludes our race results as always. We'll head over now to the interview booth and speak to a few of our drivers. I believe we have Mr. Anders Myhre, race winner, championship leader in the elite class, waiting for us as always. So we'll just head back if the replay will allow. There we go. And we'll have a little word with, as we said, with our championship leader. Okay, Dara, we are good to go.
Right, let's get Anders in quickly. He's the only one waiting, so it's not a big list. Anders, welcome and congratulations first of all. Can you hear us?
Thank you.
Yes, Anders, good stuff. Welcome back into the booth. It's another race victory for you tonight. Not much of a challenge after you got through the early phase, but a 90-minute race is enough to contend with, never mind having to deal with other cars. So talk us through your mindset going into that one. Obviously, once you realised that you had the pace over the rest of the field, it looked like it was just a case of managing the car, not overexerting yourself and making sure that you could complete the full race distance.
I had a bit of struggle to hear what you said. The sound was going a bit on and off, but yeah, that was probably one of the toughest races I've ever done, actually. The car was so unbalanced. I mean, I've used this setup shop for so many years now and never had an issue, but now at the last few races, the Ferrari has been so bad. I was struggling to keep the car on the road. The car wanted to take me out in every single corner and every single lap. So just happy I survived that and made the most out of it, because that was difficult.
And I mean, we've now had 5 races over the course of the season so far, and you've said how difficult it was tonight. What are the main differences that you found between the hour-long races and these longer 90-minute races over the course of the season?
Can you repeat? I think I fixed the sound now.
Oh, you're on my side.
It wasn't.
I was just asking. Oh, okay. No, you're all good. I was just asking what the differences you found between the 60-minute races and the 90-minute races, because, like you said, it was difficult tonight.
Yeah, not probably because of the race. I think this time it was a setup problem. I had the same at the previous track, but I changed setup last minute, which kind of saved me at Virginia. But yeah, obviously the tire wear is a lot harder, because I learned that in race 1, that with the tire thing that we have in this series, where the pit tires are after the fuel, you can't really change tires. You will lose so much time. So obviously on this track you have to keep the left front within the limit, because that one gets really knackered around this track. So I noticed that on the final few laps, that the carousel and the last corner and turn 1 and everything was really difficult with the understeer. And then of course with the setup I had the oversteer at the exit, so I was over-rotating into the corners, understeering in the middle, and then over-rotating at the exit. So it was a struggle, but yeah, I think it was mainly because of the setup today and not because it was a 90-minute race.
It's funny that you say that, Anders, because we were sort of complimenting how you might have set the car up, because it did look a little bit loose, and we were seeing moments of oversteer when you were coming out of some of the corners. But I was trying to say that it was because you're confident in the car and because you can control that oversteer on the exit of the corner. But it sounds like you weren't too happy with that. Is that something you can try and tweak? Do you understand the setups, or do you sort of take what you get from the setup shop and just hope for the best? It seems like it's working. You're championship leader, you're winning races, but I guess what you're telling us, Anders, is there's more pace if you can tweak the setup a little bit more.
Yeah, and not necessarily pace. I think, or a one-lap pace, it's not going to be much different, but it's going to be a more pleasant experience and a less stressful race to have a setup that's a bit more. I like that the car rotates, but to a certain degree, and it seems like the setup shop I've been using now is using mostly rear wing to tweak that rotation, and I don't think that's maybe it works over a one-lap pace, but for a race it doesn't seem to at least work for me. So yeah, I think I'm not too good with adjusting setups, so I kind of have to take what I get, and I have to look elsewhere for the next races, I think, because the balance was not good today. Yeah, I like the Ferrari. I mean, it's fast. I know I like to drive the BMW better, but for me that car is like 0.3 a lap slower at pretty much every track. So yeah, I wish I could drive that car, but the way Milton is going lately, I don't think I can drop any pace. So I think I have to stick with the Ferrari and try to find the setup that suits me better for the next race.
Yeah, that's another thing to mention as well. Milton has done very well over the last few weeks, of course. It was tight in qualifying. It has been for the last few weeks. If only he could find a little bit more race pace, he might be able to put a challenge on. But looking forward to the next couple of weeks then, Anders, we have Hockenheim coming up next week for just 1 hour, but then straight back at it, Le Mans for 90 minutes. I think both of those circuits offer different challenges. I think, again, any 90-minute session will prove to be a little bit difficult around such a classic track as Le Mans. Not too difficult in parts, but is there anything you're particularly looking forward to around Hockenheim or Le Mans over the next fortnight?
I haven't tried the Ferrari at Hockenheim after I got the aero update. I didn't like the car there before, but I think it's a lot better now. So I think Hockenheim will be pretty good. And Le Mans is not really one of my favorite tracks. It's too many straights for me. So
yeah.
Yeah, obviously there's often very good racing there because of the slipstream. So it's hard to get away from other drivers and get out of the slipstream. So it will definitely be a different kind of challenge than Hockenheim. If I had to choose between the two, I will definitely go Hockenheim 2 times instead of going Le Mans.
Fair enough. Well, sadly, mate, we can't give you that wish, but yeah, I understand it completely, especially if you're out there on your own. It could be, you might lose your concentration down those super long straights around Le Mans, but at least you have some time to prepare for that one then. So, before we let you go, Anders, is there anyone that you'd like to give a mention to, a shout out to? If you would, then you can do that now.
Yeah, I have to give a shout out to Racing Sport. I know some of the guys are watching. There will be some changes in the team going forward, so I'm excited to see how that will be. Yeah, big shout out to them, and I want to thank them for what we have achieved so far, and hopefully it will be more success in the future with them. And thanks to you guys, and thanks to the organizers of the league. And yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, mate. Enjoy the preparation, and we'll catch you next week.
Thank you.
Let's get a word in from Anders. He, of course, won in the elite class, but he wasn't the only race winner here this evening. We also got a race winner in the pro class, and that was Mr. Ross Young, who should join us now. Welcome in, Ross. Can you hear us, first of all?
Yes, I can. How are you doing?
Hey, Ross. Welcome into the booth. I have you up on the screen here, but sadly, the overlay is presenting you as Mr. Anders Myhre, so we'll just knock that off, and we'll leave it with the lovely DXC Cyan livery on the screen. That'll do. So, congratulations, mate. Good stuff. Tight finish. Strategy went into your favour. Did you think that it was going to end that way? Because it felt like it came as a bit of a surprise to us up here in the commentary booth. So, yeah. I mean, first of all, congrats, and then tell us how the strategy felt during that race.
To be honest, like I had a wee spin and trying to think maybe, where was it? turn 8, maybe something like that, where I was sidewards, and I thought, that's it, I'm out of contention for the win. And then thanks to Danny forgetting to uncheck his tyres and taking the front right tyre, I managed to overtake him in the pits, and then I pulled out in front of Chris and was not expecting that at all. So yeah, I was quite happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, over the course of the race, it kind of ebbed and flowed in that group. At the front of the train. Did you feel like you were going to come under a little bit more pressure, and how pleased were you that you had that extra elite car between you on that last lap?
Yeah, so I think it was Andrew dive bombed me into the last few corners. I was just like, oh my god, this is going to cause an accident here. But no, I managed to hold on, and then the other elite driver, I can't remember who it was, might have been Adam maybe, they got past, and then after that I was like, oh god, Chris is catching me, and I managed to hold off, and then one of the elite drivers made a mistake which allowed me to just be back in between them, so it was perfect.
Yeah, I think we sort of naturally thought that with Danny coming through the pack, obviously the standing that he has in the championship, it might have been a simple decision to swap the cars, but in the end you were pretty comfortable with the pace, and you weren't phased. And just talk us through that. Obviously in the team's championship, the Magenta team are in 3rd, you guys are down in 7th. The points that you've brought home for the team tonight will certainly propel you a little bit higher up the order, but was there ever any thought about swapping positions, or were you just going to go to the line and see who got there first, really?
To be honest, I think we were probably just going to take it to the line, but we weren't really ever fighting each other. So, I mean, if he was in the lead, he was in the lead. I wasn't really going to try and fight unless he made a mistake. So we did try and use each other. We were in chat with each other, using each other like just in a tow, and then like I made a mistake, so just let him pass, and vice versa. So thanks to Danny, he probably pulled me through, which got me the lead in that race. But like I say, if he didn't change his tyre, probably would have been a different result. Yeah,
I think so too. And so halfway through the championship now, Ross, and the results starting to come. A victory tonight in that McLaren. It's a very McLaren-dominated championship you have there in the Pro class. So I don't suppose you have any thought about changing. It seems like you're pretty comfortable at this point with the car.
No, very comfortable. It's my favourite car. As a lot of the other races, I'll tell you. And Road America is my favourite track, so that's probably a reason why I had the pace up there. The first few races, I missed the first race as I was in New York, and then the rest of the time I've just had a couple of bad races. It's not like me. I'm usually up there, usually up quite high in the standings, around about like 6th, 5th, 4th, stuff like that. So I'm hoping I can try and pull myself back through it.
Good stuff, mate. And quick note on the team then, as we said, looking good in the standings. You got many drivers at DXT, as always, registered in these sessions. So mood high. I guess both teams feel like they have a good chance of a good run at it over the next 5 rounds.
Yeah, I hope so. Fingers crossed. Like I say, we're trying to play the team game, like especially tonight. Danny definitely helps me get that win. I would say if I wasn't in his draft, I don't think I would have got that overcut. Overcut.
Good stuff. Well, I'm sure you'll give a shout out to him, but if there's anyone else that you'd like to mention before we go, then please feel free to do that now.
Just the DX team, and obviously Danny Phillips for the legend in the race that he had. Just a shame, like I say, that he made one wee mistake.
Awesome.
But yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, big congratulations once again. Good luck with your preparation for the next round, this time next week, and thanks for joining us. I'm sure we'll catch you again very shortly.
I'll catch you, sir.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Well, good to get a word from him as well. From both of our... Sorry, I got... trying to look at the who was left. Yeah, good to get a word from both of our race winners. And it's nice to see that, that happiness and form and that confidence coming in has paid off for him in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sort of caught me by surprise. It caught maybe us by surprise watching on from the commentary box. And then as the race unfolded, we realised, wow, he's in this, and the strategy paid off. And I think as soon as that other McLaren from the elite class put himself in between him and Jennings, I think it was all said and done. Obviously, aside from any unfortunate mistakes, which didn't come. So in the end, he converted those points, which is great for him in his standings, great for the team in their run toward the top 5 as well. And it's a good way to round out and to cross over the halfway point of the season then. So that will be everything we have for you for this week, everybody. Of course, you join us this time next week where we arrive back in Germany at the Hockenheimring for a 1-hour session. Love that track. Should be a very good one before we get toward the final stages of the championship. So what else do we have going on here at SRI? We've got 2 splits tonight, Split A and Split B. Myself and Dara and Paul Walsh live concurrently on a Thursday night every week, getting underway around 7:30. We have the Friday evening GTE Season 3 Championship, a fortnightly series, and then the GT3 Sunday Showdown, the UK SR Sunday Showdown every week on a Sunday as well. And as we said a little bit earlier in the broadcast, the Transatlantic McLaren Trophy has started last night for pre-season every fortnight. Round 1 is at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in 2 weeks' time, so be sure to tune into that one. And then if you want to join us on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, there's not many seats going this time of the year in SRI, so you can join us in the practice league. First come, first served, free entry for everyone. More information can be found at discord.gg/SimRacing International. So that's it from us. That's it from Paul once he's finished his lengthy interviews. Only 2 race winners for us in Split A, but he always has a few more looking to join him down there in Split B. We have a week's break for just a 1-hour session, then we're back at it in 2 weeks' time for another 90-minute feature race, which we're looking forward to. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll catch you all this time next week.